Just as the White Knight was about to fight the fearsome dragon, the arrogant player decided to skip the tutorial, rushing headfirst into the game, when suddenly the young man began to fall as the system asked him about creating his character. The distracted player rushed to finish his avatar, as he had to finalize it with a permanent name, and after his first idea was rejected by the system, the player settled for the name Piercing River. And so the young man fell like a meteorite into the novice village. Just like that, the man landed safely but in flames with his destroyed clothes. Upon landing, the protagonist noticed an old man ready to give him his first task. The young man politely proposed assistance to the old man, but was found unworthy of the quest. This made the young man grow angry as the quest giver was underestimating him. So, in order for him to prove his worth, the old man tasked him with killing some slimes at the entrance of the village. The smiling creatures looked rather weak and harmless, and so our hero immediately accepted his mission of difficulty level D. Piercing River would now try to kill a slime in order to prove his worth. With that, the young man summoned his stick, the only item currently present in his inventory, and used it to smack the monster with all his strength, dealing 5 points of damage. Piercing River was surprised by his mediocre damage that only amounted to the slime's anger. The angry monster decided to counterattack, dealing an astonishing 50 points of damage to the young man, leaving him in pain as it knocked him back. Piercing River was amazed by the great difference in firepower between him and the mere monster, and so the young man judged it wise to run away from the angry slime. Once in the village, the young man decided to check his stats, thinking that he was the victim of a bug. But after carefully checking, the protagonist realized that he truly was unable to defeat a slime with his poor stats and skills. Piercing River wanted to find a quick solution to his problem before the other players finished watching the opening animation and started the game. But he suddenly spotted something. The protagonist noticed a novice village's soldier that seemed above level 5. Piercing River politely asked the man for assistance, but the soldier immediately declined. The astonished young man was surprised to see the soldier reacting like the elder, making him wonder if all the inhabitants of the novice village were so unfriendly. The soldier stated that adventurers would have to figure out how to vanquish the slimes on their own, and that he would not help Piercing River if 10 gold coins were proposed to him. But the player quickly grasped the situation, stating that he was the only adventurer in sight, and so the protagonist offered to pay 1 gold coin to take it or leave it. The soldier then recalled the village chief asking them to raise their prices since the players would soon arrive, yet only one that proposed to pay double his salary was in sight, and so he called Piercing River back, as he decided to accept his offer. This made the protagonist crack a devilish smile, and so Piercing River asked the soldier to teach him everything that he knows. With that, he learned the D-rank basic swordsmanship and C-rank basic combo from the village soldier, Karo. The first, which was most efficient with swords and half as powerful with other weapons, had room to improve, while the second was a tunic combo with a small cooldown that dealt great damage. After that, the village soldier finally caught his breath and immediately demanded his payment from the young adventurer as promised. But Piercing River, who had just spawned into this world, lacked the funds to honor the deal and stated that he would fulfill it once he had the resources to do so. The soldier then burst out with anger, thinking that the protagonist was playing him for a fool, but Piercing River assured him that he didn't have the money. So Kara stated that they should make a contract stating that he would have the right to kill the player if he didn't receive his payment within a week. And with a smiling face, Piercing River proposed another gold coin in exchange for the soldier's gear. After some time, the protagonist was able to acquire the equipment after relentless convincing. With that, he acquired a sword and armor from the white rank, which was the weakest of all, followed by bronze, silver, gold, dark gold, spirit, earth, and heaven rank in that order. And so the young man had optimized both his defense and offense, and with that decided to face the slimes once again, when suddenly a thunderstorm appeared. Something began to descend from the sky. All the players arrived at the novice village. Piercing River was surprised to see how smoothly those who watched the opening animation landed in the village, unlike him. And so the young man rushed to the outside of the village to grab the opportunities ahead. Piercing River was once again face to face with the slimes, as he decided to use his basic combo on one of them, dealing 28 points of damage. The young man was happy with his optimized damage. Suddenly, the angry slime attacked the player, dealing 12 points of damage. Piercing River was also happy with his improved defense, before dealing a lethal blow to the slime, killing his first monster in the game, which made him acquire 10 EXP. Piercing River was amazed by the last slash that dealt 66 points of damage to the slime, making him overjoyed by the skill and gear efficiency. And so the young man began to slash through the blue monsters. With that, our hero finally reached level 2, which increased his stats. Being happy with this result, Piercing River decided to keep on farming. After 2 hours, the players started to complain about the difficulty of taking down a single slime. This made the old man look down on them for their incompetence when someone called him. It was none other than the proud Piercing River, who successfully completed the task bestowed upon him. He then threw his bag on the ground, revealing an impressive amount of slime cores. Yet the village chief remained unimpressed, and so the annoyed protagonist, who completed his first mission, asked for other tasks to fulfill. With that, the old man challenged the beginner adventurer to slay the 10 great demon gods. The SSS rank mission consisted of killing the 10 strongest of the dark faction within a week to obtain a great reward, but Piercing River would have to pay 1,000 gold coins in case of failure. The protagonist was outraged by this ridiculous mission that should be completed within 1 week, seeing how the previous one was just about killing slimes. This made the chief of the village compare the young man to the other incompetent players. Piercing River thought about it for a little while before accepting this impossible mission. The protagonist also stated that the old man should give him the heirloom first, seeing how painful failing this mission would be. And so the old man handed him a scroll with a big smile as he praised his cleverness and wisdom. But in reality, it was all part of the village chief's plan to earn a huge profit regardless of Piercing River, who would be hunted by the Light faction as he lost many prestige points. And so upon starting the mission, the protagonist received the S-rank tool Rage of the Fire God that would inflict 5 million points of damage within a 200-meter radius upon destroying the scroll. After that, in the forest, the level 5 monster known as Grey Wolf charged with bloodlust in his eyes and inflicted 103 points of damage to the player upon biting him. But the protagonist quickly counterattacked before dealing the final strike. And after obtaining 80 EXP by slaying the common monster, the young man reached level 4, boosting his stats once again. His victory over the Grey Wolf also granted him a mere 3 bronze coins. Seeing how useless the scroll was and how the time limit seemed impossible with his growing speed, the young man began to think of abandoning his account. But to his horror, the system informed him that abandoning the account right now would convert his in-game debt into an actual one amounting to $5,900,000. When suddenly he was spotted by a pack of Grey Wolves as he tried to keep a cool head. Seeing how he was at a disadvantage, the hero decided to run with his tail between his legs. And so the young man hid behind a bush, ready to ambush a lone wolf, before quickly charging at the monster and finishing him off. Piercing River was sure and certain that no one would hear his praised cry for help. 2 hours had passed and the protagonist was able to slay multiple wolves. To his surprise, he reached level 7 and earned the wolf skin wrist guard that granted him 2 points of defense, when suddenly the young man spotted something nearby. The powerful bronze rank boss Demonic Wolf King, who was also the bodyguard of a necromancer, had appeared. Piercing River was amazed by the beast's incredible health and thought of retreating in order to face it once stronger. But after thinking carefully, he realized that engaging the bronze rank boss would allow him to keep a head start on the other players. And so the protagonist charged headfirst at the beast. But the evolved hound immediately spotted the man and prepared to intercept its scrawny attacker. Piercing River tried to dodge the attack, but the monster's claws ended up reaching him, causing a loss of 219 points of health. At this moment, the protagonist realized the enormous gap between his firepower and the werewolves, and so the mighty beast charged once again. But our hero was surprised to see a Grey Wolf attacking him from behind. The hound's bite dealt 78 points of damage, leaving Piercing River in great pain, when suddenly he grabbed the beast by its neck and used the poor creature as a meat shield. This maneuver shocked the Wolf King, who found himself unable to hurt or harm his own kin. It turns out that the clever protagonist was well aware of the wolf's morals and so used the smaller beast as a shield while unchaining a combo on its king. The boss found himself in a difficult situation and so tried to take the young man by surprise. But once again, the regular Grey Wolf was used as an obstacle in his way. With that, the main character kept on attacking while staying away from harm's way. 2 hours had now passed and the Wolf King began to transform as its health was cut in half, making Piercing River fear the worst. He was worried that the powerful Wolf King was going through an advancement that would allow even a common monster to gain more power, and the bosses had a better chance of reaching it. And so with a violent aura, the demonic Wolf King used the skill Bloodlust, greatly boosting its speed and offensive power at the price of losing 0.2% HP per minute as time went by. As the young man was left in awe by the small price the wolf had to pay, it activated its skill, Wolf King Intimidation, dampening the player's attack and movement speed for 30 seconds. With that, the Wolf King charged headfirst and took out the Grey Wolf that Piercing River was using as a shield. The young man couldn't believe that the Wolf King used his skill Rendering Claw to annihilate his own kin in one blow. Yet this action resulted in it being unable to move for 5 seconds due to overwhelming sadness. So the young man took the opportunity and attacked relentlessly. But just when 5 seconds had passed, the demonic Wolf King used his mighty claws and dealt 310 points of damage to the player. The young man couldn't believe that one attack from the evolved hound was enough to almost finish him off. Seeing this, he decided to run away, thinking that he could outrun the mighty beast. But the boss quickly caught up with him. So Piercing River quickly dodged the lethal claws and struck the monster's stomach with his sword. Piercing River started to think that the only way to kill the beast was to let its own debuff consume it. But he would have to take extreme caution since one hit from the demonic Wolf King would result in his demise, and so he activated his basic swordsmanship. 5 hours had now passed and Piercing River managed to deal a finishing blow to the boss that had lost most of its health. Finally, Piercing River was able to kill his first boss, the demonic Wolf King, earning him 2000 EXP, and 500 points of prestige. And so the young man quickly reached level 10, and as the first in-game to defeat a boss, he received many rewards and decided to announce his feat as a way to receive more prestige. And all were in awe of his victory, seeing how most of them were still fighting their slimes. This made Piercing River's notifications flood with friend requests, so the young man made sure to reject them all since he didn't want to befriend anyone. With that being settled, the first player went to check what he gained from the dying boss, when suddenly someone came up to him asking about the wolf's killer. This person was none other than a necromancer with an unknown level. Seeing that the guilty one was nothing but an adventurer, the dark magician decided to finish what his demonic wolf king puppet couldn't. Piercing River recognized the spellcaster as the one mentioned in the demonic wolf's description, sensing the might of this foe. Yet the protagonist still had a card up his sleeve. The necromancer was on the verge of reaching the spirit rank, and so he stated that there was no point in the beginner resisting his fate. Yet the young man seemed unimpressed by the high rank of the magician. This made the necromancer, who was fully capable of terminating the adventurer despite his injuries, think of him as a fool since he wasn't afraid of death, seeing how he could respawn. Piercing River then praised the High Mage for knowing about his immortality before asking him for one last favor before killing him off. This intrigued the Dark Spellcaster. Piercing River wanted to look at the information panel of the Dark Gold rank Necromancer, but seeing how bad his concealed condition actually was, the wizard began to panic and decided to terminate the young man right away. So Piercing River showed him the heirloom given to him by the old man. The Necromancer was left in shock upon seeing such a powerful weapon in the hands of a beginner. The protagonist took advantage of the situation to threaten the Dark Magician. Piercing River tried to flip the situation and mump the man, yet the Necromancer was well aware that the young man wanted to see if the scroll would be enough to finish him off. And so the magician dared the young man to take the gamble and try to kill him, thinking that he wouldn't be bold enough to do so. But the protagonist boldly affirmed that it wouldn't matter since he would come back to life. And so he began to tear down the forbidden curse scroll in front of the Necromancer, whose condition made him too weak to survive this powerful attack. When suddenly he asked him to stop. The Dark Magician wanted to make a deal with the young man as he was afraid for his own life. In exchange for sparing his life, the Necromancer would have to give him everything valuable that he had on him. Piercing River was impressed by the NPC's intelligence. But according to the injured man, the rules of the game forbade such transactions for free. This made the player feel weird when the character mentioned the game rules. Daniel, the Necromancer, proposed to make the young man his pupil as he invited him to the Dark Faction, making him a traitor to his original side and activating the Dark Prestige system. Piercing River was surprised to receive such an unexpected offer. But the young man didn't believe a word the man said, stating that he just wanted to drag him into his mess and refused to abandon his well-balanced profession of warrior to join him. So the mage vowed that he would do his best as a mentor and give him the hidden profession Dark Swordsman, and if he dared to break his word, he would be punished by the God of Vows. Piercing River was amazed to see that the hidden profession was far superior to his current one, and with this much stats, 1 point of attack would cause 10 points of damage. The young man began to imagine himself embracing the role and grew fond of this weird idea. And so, with a cheerful smile, the first player agreed to have Daniel, the Necromancer, as his teacher. With that, our hero became part of the Dark Faction as a Dark Swordsman, activating the Dark Prestige system and stripping him of his light privilege as he began his transformation. And basic swordsmanship and combo were turned into Dark Swordsmanship and Hysterical Killing Strike. Being the first player to change his profession, the system rewarded him with stat points, fame points, and the rare item Ring of the Undead. Piercing River wondered if he could regain his human form, but the Dark Magician reassured him that he would regain his human form once he gained more power and mastered his evil aura. So he decided to help him conceal his demonic form until then. With that, the young man would keep his human form for 3 days, yet the Dark Mage couldn't help but notice how troubled his pupil was. Piercing River began to complain about his master being a mere Dark Gold ranked Necromancer, which meant that his future didn't look so bright. This arrogant claim annoyed Daniel, so he stated that since the Dark Faction had great respect for power, his pupil could become a disciple of one of the Dark Gods if he showed promise, filling the young man with excitement. As he mocked his student's name, the teacher stated that his pupil had to take a test in order to prove his newfound loyalty, in which he had to kill 100 players. The protagonist found this task too difficult, so the master stated that given his status as his disciple and his new profession, he should be more than able to complete the task ahead. Daniel then went on his way as he stated that he needed 3 days to recover from his injuries and asked the young man to pass the test in order to exit the novice village. But the protagonist was more curious about what would happen to his spawn point now that he was labeled as a traitor. With a smile on his face, the Necromancer stated that his newfound student must have lost the grace of the god that he betrayed. The young man couldn't believe his own eyes, but his mentor reassured him that he would now be under the grace of the ancient demon god after betraying the divinity of life, which intrigued the young man. So the mentor claimed that more detail would be revealed as he progresses in his journey, stating that he would surely surpass him with his profession as they bid farewell. In the end, the protagonist was happy with the dark faction and its advantages. Piercing River quickly put his new thing on enhancing his stats as his first two skills were upgraded by the dark power. The protagonist decided to test his newfound powers on the nearby gray wolves as he collected more equipment. With that, he began to attack the hounds, and so he acquired the wolf skin soft cap. Piercing River now had complete gear and decided to sell the spare parts for profit in the novice village, when suddenly a mysterious man pushed him away. He was surprised to see many players attacking the gray-haired wolf. One of the players declared the area as the property of the Alliance of Heroes as he tried to make him go away. But the hero found it revolting seeing how he was there first and claimed that it would be unfair for solo players if guilds began to claim places. Yet the man didn't want to hear it and insisted that the place now belonged to them. Seeing this, the young man decided to fight the Alliance of Heroes in order to protect his rights. With that, the young man began to record the fight as the other players attacked him. But to their surprise, their blades barely damaged the solo player, and with one swing, he killed the two players with ease. The young man was amazed by his new dark powers, seeing how normal players were easily squashed by him. He was even more amazed to see that eliminating other adventurers now granted him EXP. Seeing how their own were easily killed, they all charged at once. But little did they know, that's what the dark swordsman was waiting for, and so began his carnage. Piercing River now possessed great speed and then combined it with his blade in order to split one of the players in half. Just like that, many players were quickly eliminated. The last one of them couldn't believe what he had just witnessed. Piercing River jokingly stated that his 17th kill was left speechless by his handsomeness. As he finished recording, the young man affirmed that the Alliance of Heroes were the ones who started it. Later that night, the protagonist returned to the village in order to make a profit out of his spare equipment. And so he proposed his Grey Wolf's equipment in exchange for real money. The players recognized him as Piercing River, the strongest player in the game, and recognized his common articles as rare, seeing how the game was newly launched. With that, they started to make their offers, but the protagonist affirmed that he would only sell to the highest bidder. A man called Soaring Dragon proposed $10,000 for each item the young man had in stock as he invited the hero to join him in the Dragon Clan Guild. But the first player insisted on staying a solo player in order to mask his identity as a dark faction member. The man proposed to add the protagonist as a friend so he could turn to their guild first when selling items, but was later surprised to discover that the merchant was, in fact, the first player. And so the two players made a successful trade. After that, in the real world, the young man finally took off his VR headset. The protagonist sighed. He was able to successfully sell his goods for $40,000. With that, he decided to upload the video of him terminating the Alliance of Heroes. Upon upload, the comment sections were flooded with people arguing about the video. The employee informed the guild leader that they were being provoked by the dark swordsman in the comment section. This made the man in the chair quite angry. Piercing River was daring them to face him. The man stated that the solo player was overconfident for challenging an entire guild on his own. And so the head of the Alliance of Heroes decided to use all his available numbers to take the young man down and even ordered new players to be recruited to join their guild. The angry man also added a reward of $50,000 for every time Piercing River kicks the bucket, no matter how many times he dies. This made the employee think that his boss was overdoing it, yet the man affirmed that the game was a big business opportunity, which is why they should be bold and think as such. The assistant assumed that his boss needed 20 more men, yet the greedy one wanted to bring fame to his guild, which is why he requested 100 men to defeat the game's best player. Later on, they were able to find the targeted player. This made the protagonist, who was eager for EXP, blood boil. And so the men charged all at once, aiming for the immense bounty on the young man's head. But little did they know Piercing River was looking forward to demonstrating his dark powers. And so 4 men charged all at once, before suddenly disappearing. An evil smile cracked on the young man's face, as he mercilessly killed 2 players with ease. Seeing this, the regular players finally understood why the reward was set so high, which discouraged them since their levels would drop each time they respawned. But the guildmaster encouraged the troops by reminding them of their numbers and also that you would drop a lot of items once dead, seeing how many he killed due to sin value. Piercing River affirmed that he didn't know if his sin value increased, but his EXP bar sure did, and so he dared them to attack him one after the other. Since Eternal Heaven was a new game, most players were still level 2 and were pretty weak, seeing how none of them had even changed professions, making them easy to farm. A crazed look filled the young man's eyes as he began to tear through the enemy numbers. This made one of the men question the hero's sanity. Players tried to stab him, yet only dealt 1 point of damage. His minimal firepower amused the protagonist. 20 minutes had passed, and the players of the Alliance of Heroes were happy to see the Dark Swordsman's HP bar almost empty, which boosted their morale. But their celebrations were cut short when Piercing River's health was restored as he reached level 11. All looked disappointed and wondered why he leveled up by slaughtering them. So the guildmaster claimed that the young man must have used the rewards he earned by slaying the demonic Wolf King, and claimed that their numbers were enough to finish him. With that, the Alliance of Heroes attacked the young man once again, thinking that a special item caused him to level up. These empty, self-comforting explanations greatly amused our protagonist. And so he kept on fighting, being 26 kills away from passing his loyalty test to the Dark faction. And finally, after 15 minutes, the Dark Swordsman killed his 100th player, granting him the acknowledgement of his new faction. Piercing River was happy to have passed the test. Yet the young man insisted on keeping the fight as it was a good way of farming. Despite that, the guild master was not discouraged, yet was still impressed by Piercing River, who kept his dynamic energy despite fighting their immense numbers. And after 5 minutes, the hero's health was once again almost empty, renewing the player's morale. Yet the protagonist kept his smile on his face as he reached level 12 and restored his health bar once again. Piercing River, with his demonic smile, couldn't help but enjoy the ongoing slaughter. The alliance of heroes were left confused as the young man kept on evolving while fighting them. The protagonist then taunted his foes to run away while he broadcast this fight and risked losing their reputation. This situation made the guild master panic as he assumed that the hero was still feeding on the reward of a bronze rank boss. Seeing how desperate the situation was, the head of the alliance of heroes had no choice but to order a retreat. With that, the men ran with their tails between their legs. Piercing River took his opportunity to keep the weapons that were left behind for himself. The protagonist was happy with the outcome of this battle, seeing how he was able to jump from level 10 to level 12. And since his sin value was still 0, he assumed that eliminating players from the opposing faction would not affect it. When suddenly, Piercing River received an urgent message. The system notified him that his master Daniel was on the verge of being killed, and that if he died, he would lose 50,000 Dark faction prestige points. Not wanting to rot in the novice village forever, the young man rushed to save the one that would get him out of there, and ran as fast as he could. Daniel the necromancer was cornered against the wall. The old man wanted to kill the dark mage with a high bounty in order to enter the Light Vatican and expand his knowledge. The light mage revealed that he spent a long time tracking the necromancer. Yet the cornered Daniel stated that their fight's outcome was still unknown, as he affirmed that the spirit rank old man didn't scare him. When suddenly, both spellcasters noticed something coming their way. It was no other than Piercing River. The old man was surprised to see the adventurer. Our protagonist also recognized the light mage as the mysterious leader of the novice village. Piercing River then compared the pyromancer to his master, seeing how his powers were shrouded in mystery. The flamecaster was surprised to sense dark power from the young man, fearing that he had changed factions. Seeing this, the old man decided to terminate the master and drag the pupil to the Light Vatican, which would surely grant him the title of its envoy. Piercing River asked his teacher if they could beat the old man, but the necromancer sarcastically claimed that his small chances of victory were all blown up by his pupil's arrival, and claimed that their only escape was for Piercing River to distract the pyromancer while he used the teleportation spell that would take more than 20 seconds to cast. The hero found his teacher cruel for forcing him to use his most valuable weapon for his own sake before asking his master to give him something. Piercing River only agreed to help his mentor if he was given the task as a mission with a generous reward at the end. This irony left the dark mage annoyed. With that settled, the young man was now ready to face the old pyromancer. Seeing how the two of them devised a plan in front of him, the old man was left triggered. Piercing River then threatened the man with the very scroll he gave him. The angry pyromancer, who began to regret his choice, then reminded the kid that he was the original owner of the scroll and that there was no way it could affect him. As he tore down the scroll, the young man stated that this item was a gift from an old man who dreamed of the defeat of the demon gods like the pyromancer. With that, the power of the curse was unleashed, hitting the old mage, who struggled to tank such a powerful spell. But just then, the teleportation circle was ready as the necromancer activated it. And so, Piercing River disappeared along with his master. Shortly after that, the system notified the players of the protagonist's betrayal and informed them that anyone who could kill him would obtain rare items and unlock a hidden profession. A light appeared out of nowhere, and the little bunny couldn't believe his eyes as teacher and student appeared on the map known as Blue Wind Plains. But just then, the young man was informed that his betrayal had become known to the public. He was sure and certain that players would come after him, seeing how big the reward would be for killing him. Having left the village, he had ruptured his deal with the soldier, which meant that he would be hunted by him, and since he attacked the old man, he would suffer the failure of their deal. And so the young man was stripped of his precious coins as his level dropped to 1. Seeing this, he angrily went to claim his reward from his teacher. So the necromancer affirmed that he would surely be rewarded for being his student and savior, because upon completing his mission, Piercing River received 100,000 EXP and the S-rank skill known as Vicious Trample. And so the player's level, which was reset to 1, began to rise exponentially and finally reached level 14. The young man was thrilled to have unlocked a rare talent as well. The S-rank Evil Trampling is a well-known skill on the continent proper to evil beings that would attack the target and its dignity twice as the user concentrates his power within his feet. Even though Humiliating skill was pretty weak, Piercing River couldn't help but find it very convenient. It was lost in time, yet the necromancer acquired it by luck, but since he was a mage with a weak physique, he decided to gift the talent to his young student as it would help him within the faction. This intrigued the young protagonist as the talent was weak and independent of weapons, so the master explained that even the strongest of their kin wished to acquire his evil trampling. Seeing this, the greedy young man was left happy as he asked for more rewards, which pissed off his master, thinking that he wanted compensation for his used forbidden scroll. Yet Piercing River affirmed that he just wanted to become stronger. With that, the master stated that his pupil should train in order to do so regardless of weapons, and so he decided to take him somewhere safer as these planes didn't belong to any faction. The necromancer was left weakened, which made him seek a place under the demon god's protection. And after an hour, master and student arrived at the barren lands. Piercing River watched as his teacher struggled to move. The dark mage explained that he needed 2 days of rest since he had almost recovered before giving medicine to his pupil, as he explained that the monsters here were perfect for training. With that, the young man thanked his teacher for this gift that would help him recover 500 HP every 10 seconds. And so Piercing River accepted the C-rank mission given to him by Daniel to kill 500 demonic lizards. After some time, the protagonist found his level 18 prey, which was highlighted by its bad temper. The demonic lizards were far stronger than the wolf boss that our hero had to face before, but since he had grown stronger, he assumed that he would be okay if he attacked small numbers. With that, the protagonist began to emit a dark aura, before quickly charging at the demonic lizard, ready to take the reptile's life. And with one use of evil trampling, the hero dealt 1869 points of damage to the creature and immobilized it for 2 seconds. After that, the young man unleashed a barrage of sword slashes on the demonic reptile. Seeing this, the monster tried to counterattack, and bit the young man's leg, dealing 402 points of damage. Yet the smiling Piercing River remained unfazed by the damage, before killing his first demonic lizard and earning 500 EXP points and checking his profile, when he was suddenly attacked by a swarm of demonic lizards. Seeing this, the young man decided that it would be safer to create some distance between him and the monsters. And after a few minutes, the protagonist managed to slay all the beasts, when he suddenly received a call from dragons soaring 10,000 miles. He then informed the protagonist that many players were looking for a way to kill him, as the young man picked the small amount of money dropped by the monsters, when suddenly the man proposed to the protagonist to sell his account. This made the young man speculate that this might be a trap to kill him, and that his account would disappear once he was killed, which made him immediately refuse. Yet the young man's attention was quickly caught by a lucrative offer made to him. 20 million was an incredible amount worth destroying his account for, as it would make him rich. Yet the greedy one wanted more, and so he declined once again as the punishment was far too great. The man then stated that there was a huge bounty on the hero's head, stating that once they eliminated him, he would lose his benefits. So Piercing River decided to remind the man why he had a huge bounty on his head in the first place, and with that, the man decided to end the call. But just then, our hero proposed to sell the man some equipment. The man agreed and bought them for 30,000. The protagonist found the price reasonable and accepted it, stating that the man should send one of his friends to pick up the merchandise, but that he would have to pay in advance. Hearing this, the man agreed and hung up, leaving the merchant to slay demonic lizards until the middleman arrived. And so our hero charged forward, spending his time killing the devilish reptiles. When he finally leveled up, reaching level 15. Suddenly, his human disguise wore off upon leveling up, awakening his job class's power as he gained the talent known as the Power of Death. This new passive would allow the Dark Swordsman to heal 1,000th of his life per second in battle and 0.5% while resting, which made the ambitious player happy. And having received the price of the sold equipment, the young man gave the buyer the hidden location of the merchandise. In this game, when white tier equipment is hidden, it would lose its owner within a day, while bronze takes 3 days and silver 7, as stated by the system as a reminder. With that being settled, the young man returned to his animal cruelty, and after an hour, the protagonist managed to slay 93 demonic lizards. Piercing River was happy to see the dying creature drop a piece of equipment. The Dark Swordsman had acquired the Sand Tier Sandy Boots, the ideal pair for desert adventures, yet they required their user to be at least level 16 in order to wear them. Seeing this, the young man decided to keep playing and level up when he was suddenly stopped. A voice from the real world stated that the hero didn't show such dedication even when studying for his college admission test, before asking him to stop the game in order to eat. Meanwhile, in the real world, a man apologized for underestimating the protagonist, who was able to defeat 100 players on his own. He then assumed responsibility in front of Two for this grand failure. Yet Two affirmed that it's not the man's fault, since he was directing solo players that wouldn't listen to him and asked him to carry on his work. And so the man politely excused himself. But Two, once alone, expressed his frustration and swore that the young man would be constantly hunted by swarms of players. After that, in eternal heaven, Piercing River finally logged back in, when he was suddenly greeted by the swing of a tail, sending him flying away while dealing 10 points of damage. This surprise attack annoyed the young man. He was now facing the bronze tier boss known as Demonic Lizard King, a ruthless slayer. Since his opponent was a mere bronze tier boss, the hero was certain he could kill it. And so he charged headfirst at the Demonic Lizard King, The protagonist immediately used Evil Trampling, dealing 1,073 points of damage to the bronze tier boss and immobilizing him for a fraction of a second. Piercing River was surprised and disappointed by his attack's mere results, when suddenly the vile reptile began to emit a green energy. This made him a victim of the Lizard King's poisonous skin, which would make him lose 500 HP in 10 seconds. The protagonist had to resort to the medicine given to him by his master, and so the young one charged once again, dealing 575 points of damage to the boss upon hitting him on the head before trying to slice it up with his dark blade, leaving the monster in great pain. Seeing this, the demonic Lizard King decided to counterattack, trying to smash his opponent with the swing of his tail, but the player managed to easily cut it off. The crazed young man was determined to take revenge on the giant reptile, and after a few minutes, Piercing River finally managed to slay the level 20 bronze tier boss. The dying boss dropped a large number of silver coins, which made the player excited about the equipment that he must have acquired. The young man couldn't believe his eyes as he had acquired the bronze tier Yellowstone armor, which was ideal for ambushes in the desert, and the demon's stone staff, which was considered a treasure among new magicians. Seeing how the armor had a high level requirement and how the staff was rendered useless since he was a swordsman, our hero decided to sell his reward. But the man argued that the required level was too high for everyone in the guild, yet the protagonist managed to convince him otherwise. In the end, the man offered him 50,000 since it was just early game equipment, which the seller gladly accepted, asking to send someone to pick it up. Piercing River looked forward to the fortune that Eternity had to offer him, seeing how he was able to make 100,000 in such a short time so early. He then decided to slay some demonic lizards in order to complete the mission given to him by the Dark Magician. And so he began to kill the demonic beasts one after the other, until he finally reached level 16, which meant that he could now use the boots that he got earlier. The player's avatar now had almost complete equipment. Shortly after, in the real world, our hungry hero decided to order some food when he suddenly received a text from someone called Wang Kai. Seeing how his old close friend from university was making fun of him as usual, he asked him to meet at their regular spot. And so our hero made his way into the vast city before seeing someone waving at him. Wang Kai, who was happy to see him, immediately offered a job to his old friend. Our protagonist was offered to become a professional player. He explained how Han's great skills should be put to good use and how he could introduce him to the studio he's been working with, which was planning to make a big impact in Eternity. But the protagonist immediately declined. This made Wang Kai think that Han didn't trust him, so he assured him that he would never stab him in the back before explaining that he would receive a generous salary of $1,123 a month. He then added how the gamer's talent would easily earn him 10,000 yuan with ease. So the protagonist clarified, stating that he didn't want to work for or with someone. This intrigued Wang Kai, which finally made him realize that his old friend was already playing Eternity. Han expressed how incredibly realistic the game's graphics were, earning it the title of Second World, which was too tempting to resist. Wang Kai immediately asked for his username in order to add him to his friend list, but Piercing River insisted on keeping it secret. It would be safer this way since every player in the game was trying to kill him. This made the young man speculate that his old pal was wanted in the Second World. Wang Kai then suddenly remembered something. He shared with his friend a secret that once a player reaches a certain level in the game, they would unlock access to a secret realm. The unsure Wang Kai explained to Han how the game's creators made it so that the realm would be unlocked after reaching a certain level in order to properly determine the player's skill. Wang Kai only managed to get such precious information because he joined a very influential studio that had its eyes on the game. With that, the young man decided to go back to work. Shortly after, in the barren lands of the Second World, something caught the necromancer's attention. Daniel was surprised to see his pupil return so early. The astonished student, who worked himself to death, immediately asked the dark mage for a reward. This dark magician was particularly nice to his students, and so the pupil was granted 25,000 EXP and the silver tier equipment storage ring. With that, our hero leveled up once again, reaching level 17. Piercing River was quite happy to have received a silver tier equipment from his master. This ring had the ability to increase the user's storage capacity by 20 slots. Our hero then asked his master about talents within the game, which intrigued him. Daniel then stated that it was normal for the player to ask such a question, seeing how he and the others had picked up their talents after some days into the game, intriguing the pupil. He then explained how the players are as strong as the original residents of this world and how they would get an hour to pick up a talent after the trial and leave after finding the right one. Han was impressed, but Daniel explained that it wasn't enough since he would only find low-level talents like his, which only give him a small chance to get double the medicine he makes. The Necromancer then mentioned a talent within the light faction known as Sword Heart that increased the final damage dealt by a swordsman by 80%. This made the protagonist speculate that this talent was S rank, but the master corrected him, stating that it was S rank, which was considered the peak of Eternity. Piercing River wanted to know if there was a rank above SF rank, but his master denied it. There were fewer than 5 people in the whole continent with a talent in this rank, as there were 6 ranks from D to SS. But the master reassured him that he should rest assured, as he had already given him an S-rank skill to crush his enemies, though the hero was aware that this also benefited his allies. He then explained that the standard of an original inhabitant was silver tier, but the crucial part was power levels, which is why different people could access the secret realm at different levels. As he grabbed his staff, he declared that more would be revealed once Piercing River becomes stronger. And so, to the student's surprise, the master decided to grant him the blessing of the demon god. After a long wait, our hero would finally receive the so-called blessing that could replace the player's ability to respawn. With that, Daniel the necromancer began to chant the spell, before using it on him. As he regained his evil form, the system informed him that the protection of the demon god would now allow him to gain titles, which disappointed our hero. The system then informed him that he had now gained the title of the Fallen for betraying his original faction, which doubled his final HP. The description of his avatar now indicated his increased life and how his death would be beneficial to the adventurers of the Light faction. He was very pleased with the outcome, comparing himself to a final boss in the game and how the gain HP would double from now on, as he finally realized why bosses have so much of it, since players of the Light faction would be eternally revived and would keep leveling up. The game had to maintain balance by making their rivals harder to eliminate, which is why the protagonists that joined the dark side would be able to level up while being as powerful as a boss. Daniel wanted to know if the power of his demonic deity impressed his young disciple, which he gladly confirmed. Yet the student was concerned, since he and his newly healed master had to find a place to stay, so the dark magician decided to take his student with him. Daniel affirmed to his pupil that he's more important than he looks. Yet the young man found his way of flexing pretty odd, and so our heroes went on their way as they entered the City of Darkness. This Tier 1 city was known as the City of Light, but became part of the Dark faction under the rule of the 10 demon gods, thus also becoming a battlefield since the Light faction wanted it back. The door was open for the city's ruler and his newest disciple. Piercing River was surprised to learn about his master's position, so Daniel explained that he had it for half a year, and because of his title and power, he was able to break through the spirit tier. This shocked the young man, as it meant that the necromancer was in fact a dark gold tier boss originally, that he was able to become the lord of first tier city. Based on the little data on cities, they should be divided into 5 tiers, from 4-tier villages to super cities, with 1 in each server, and main cities needed an earth tier at least to be conquered. The skeleton soldiers seemed to see their master return. The deputy city's head had also returned, who was in fact a gold tier boss with hidden stats known as the Undead Knight Cantor. Cantor immediately bowed to his lord and master. Yet the dark swordsman was confused, as even with Daniel and the Undead Knight, the forces of the Light faction should have been able to make this city the first to meet its doom. The ruler quickly helped his servant get up, thanking him for his hard work. The teacher then introduced his pupil to the undead. Cantor greeted the young man, stating that great potential dwelled in him, judging from his demonic aura. He then stated that the continent had never seen a weak dark swordsman before politely excusing himself. Piercing River seemed to have something on his mind. He wanted to know if the dark mage was afraid, since his territory was rather close to the lands of the Light faction. But Daniel bragged about how he didn't fear death, since he was a necromancer. Yet the young man was rather scared for his short life. But the master was well aware of his thoughts and explained that even if they weren't a direct part of the dark faction, necromancers and their play of the undead were feared by the elites. This reminded Han of a game he previously played. All the continent feared the undead, and having gotten everything he wanted from the city, Daniel wasn't scared of death, as he now only had to accomplish his one goal. Yet the teacher affirmed that his title wouldn't harm his student in any way, but would rather use it to assist him. The student asked for clarifications. The dark mage explained that both the Light and Dark factions were about to enter a legendary battle, which is why he would use the time left and resources to help his pupil train and grow. This realistic behavior made the young man question if his master was a real person or just an NPC. Although Daniel couldn't provide the gear for free, he had other ways to help Piercing River become stronger, like dealing with the dark energy swarm of mice that attacked their soldiers. But the player was left confused, since those corrupted beasts should be a part of the Dark faction. The ruler then explained that wild beasts consumed by demonic energy would become crazy and hostile toward all creatures except their own kin, regardless of their faction. Some knowledge would be useless for Han, which is why he should focus on his power level, and since his class is feared by the enemy, he would lose his ability to grow once he is noticed. With that, our hero began his mission to kill 500 rats or just deal with the source of the problem. But the young man didn't know where to start searching. So he approached a skeleton, asking him for directions. But the offended NPC burst out in anger, since Piercing River misgendered her. The astonished young man, who couldn't see the difference, asked her once again using the right pronouns. She shyly explained how the demonic rats could be found to the north of the city, and timidly added how they liked to dig inside her body, making her feel sorrow for her lover, leaving the young man speechless. With that, he went on his way, when he suddenly came face to face with the enemy. The level 17 Piercing River stumbled upon an enormous swarm of demonic rats. and to his misfortune, all pests possessed a higher level than him. The hero began to fear the worst, as when he would attack the first rat, the many others would assault him. When they all began to run away, to his surprise, the system informed him that the demonic beasts were terrified of the evil aura dwelling in his body. With that, he began to pursue them, and decided to use his S-tier skill, smashing the ground under their feet to bits. The player discovered that the terrified pests would not dare to harm him, and with that, he began to relentlessly slash them. An hour later, and the young man was still attacking them. And after 2 hours, one of them finally dropped a piece of equipment. Piercing River obtained the bronze-tier black iron wrist guards that had a level 20 requirement, but just then, he was informed that a player had already received their first talent. Just as the player expected, he wasn't the only one dedicated to the game, when suddenly, the earth beneath him began to shake as the system informed him that his carnage drew the attention of the demonic Rat King. The protagonist was now face to face with his first silver-tier boss of an unknown level. The Dark Swordsman was baffled by the monster's stats and speculated that it had a level superior to his. But he was most excited about having the chance to be the first to kill a silver-tier boss, seeing how he didn't get the first talent. The boss was getting ready to attack, and so the demonic Rat King charged at the young man. But our protagonist managed to evade at the last second, before using evil trampling on the Dark Pest King, immobilizing him for a fraction of a second. But the silver-tier boss wasn't done yet, biting Piercing River and almost cutting his life bar in half. As he took his medicine, the Dark Swordsman realized that he wouldn't be able to face the Rat King and his firepower if it wasn't for his title. With that, the young man tightly grabbed his sword before dealing 1105 points of damage to the giant rat. And after an hour of relentless fighting, the young man was able to cut the boss's HP in half. Seeing this, Piercing River readied himself for the boss's talent. Suddenly, the demonic Rat King let out a loud scream. The confused player could feel something coming his way. Demonic rats began to crawl from underground. In an instant, the protagonist found himself surrounded by an immeasurable swarm of demonic pests. Yet all the small beasts were scared of him. Both he and the giant demonic Rat King were surprised by this outcome, due to his evil aura and the silver-tier boss, which angered the young man. And so the player grabbed the monster's tail as it went to the underground, while puncturing him with his sword from behind. The boy and the rat then fell into a cave, where the demonic Rat King began to quickly heal. Piercing River had discovered the source of the corruption. The purple electric gem was radiating with evil aura, a powerful aura that the young man suddenly felt coursing through him. The protagonist couldn't believe the immense power. But he was even more amazed to learn that the light of the purple electric gem enhanced his evil aura, which would make him 10 times stronger for a whole minute. This angered the silver-tier boss, that quickly charged at the young man. But the confident Piercing River charged back, dealing unimaginable points of damage to the demonic Rat King, resulting in the death of the young man's first silver-tier boss and him reaching level 19. And being the first player to slay such a boss, the system rewarded him with 1,000 points of reputation and 20 stat points in addition to the rare item power of favors that left him intrigued. This S-rank scroll would grant him powers similar to a fraction of deities and allow our hero to raise the rank of any B-rank skills or less by one. Piercing River was overjoyed by the marvelous power he acquired. He then accepted to make the news of his achievement public and gained 10,000 reputation points. Piercing River understood that his reputation would be enough to make himself the center of attention of all other players, as the news of his victory left everyone in disbelief and shock. But just as he went to see what equipment the silver-tier boss left behind, he was surprised to learn that his talent trial would debut in less than 5 minutes, leaving him excited and shocked. He then realized that he only had 3 minutes to rate himself. Ham recalled how even if it was mostly a gamble, the trial was the only way for a player to upgrade his talents, and also recalled Daniel mentioning the restriction on gear, not skills. And so he decided to use the power of favors in order to obtain the most favorable talent, when something seemed to have caught his attention. And when asked about the desired skill to upgrade by the system, our hero chose his Dark Sword skill. And so the B-rank skill evolved into the A-rank skill Art of Killing, a talent exclusive to Dark Swordsman with monstrous stats that basically doubled the attack power of the satisfied hero. Piercing River then noticed something on the ground, an A-rank purple electric gem that would increase his power and unleash the hidden power of his user for 1 minute, power determined by the system based on one's level and other factors. The gem was already used 1 time and could only perform 2 more increases. Our hero wished that he could bring this miraculous item with him to the talent trial. As 10 seconds of preparation remained, the young man's teleportation began. The protagonist's trial would be held in a forest where he had to slay an enemy in 10 minutes, and if successful, he would receive a D or C rank talent, and in case of failure, just a D rank talent. As the time began, the Dark Swordsman turned around to find a rabbit sitting behind him. This foe was just a mere level 1 wild rabbit. The baffled young man began to think that the trial talent had an underestimating nature, seeing how the rabbit was even weaker than the slime. But even if his level was reset to 1, it turned out that he was able to bring the 20 free stat points that he received after killing the demonic Rat King. The strategic young man used all of them to improve his attack, and by combining it with his talents, killed the rabbit with a stomp of his feet, ensuring a talent between C and D rank. Suddenly, another adversary appeared, which killing it would guarantee a talent between B and D rank. The undead skeleton looked far more powerful than the wild rabbit. As his level reached level 10, the young man understood that his trial level would always be equal to his foe's level. And so the skeleton charged at the young man, but the quick thinker immediately counterattacked, killing it in one blow. Piercing River was looking forward to the talent that he would get in order to pair it with his rare roll and a rank skill. The next enemy was going to appear. This time, the protagonist would be facing a level 20 demonic wild wolf, a wild beast that immediately charged at him. But as Han's level was set to 20, he was more than confident in defeating such an opponent with ease, seeing how it couldn't begin to compare to the usual boss. Piercing River evaded the attack with ease and punched the demonic wild wolf in the gut. Just like that, the victory of the young man guaranteed him a talent between A and D rank. Han didn't find the trial challenging so far. His next opponent was an armored knight, and so the two men charged at each other before beginning to go blow for blow. But the protagonist managed to secure a hit on the head and enchain with a tempest of fists, granting him victory and the right to a talent between D rank and S rank. Han expected the S rank to be the next in line, but to his surprise, his victory would only grant him access to a talent between S and B rank instead of S and D. This time, his opponent was a level 1 young purple-winged tiger, a dark gold tier boss. The baffled young man understood that his foe was like none he ever faced before in this trial, and even if victorious, he might end up with a D-rank talent since it was mostly a gamble. For this trial, our hero's level would be elevated to 40 and his attack power to 576. And so he implanted his foot into the ground before dashing towards the fantastic beast and punching it in the head. The purple-winged tiger let out a roar, leaving the young man intrigued before falling to its knees. Seeing this, Piercing River bombarded the winged feline with a barrage of fists. Wing was suddenly hit by its attack, Thunderbolt's punishment, inflicting 6,757 points of damage to the player. Yet the protagonist kept on punching until the dark gold tier boss met its end, securing him a talent between B rank and S rank. And as a reward for defeating such a powerful foe, the system rewarded him with 5 extra stat points. This filled the player's heart with joy. He immediately used the reward to enhance his attack power when suddenly water appeared out of nowhere. A god tier boss, the Water Kylan, had made its entrance. Piercing River couldn't believe his eyes. With that, the system raised the player's level to 50. The shocked young man was happy to see that his attack power was restored to its peak due to his A-rank talent that was even able to double it. The protagonist now had to kill a level 1 god-tier boss in under 10 minutes in order to secure a talent between a rank and S rank. This creature was a rare pearl of the sea with great hydromancy, who even in youth is very powerful and once adult becomes divine. Its presence in the trial is enough to impact the outside. There was an immense gap of level between the purple-winged tiger and the Water Kylan, yet it seemed like its stats were pretty weak, just like its talents. Yet the player couldn't identify the monster's last talent, Prohibition Ocean Domain, making him speculate that the level 1 boss could use curses. Suddenly, the Kylan made the first move with a powerful blast that the young man barely avoided, yet he wasn't left unscratched. Han took immense damage from this simple basic attack. The monster then continued by tackling the protagonist to the ground, dealing 4,555 points of damage. The player thought about how he lost so much HP once again to a simple move, when the god-tier boss was getting ready to finish him off. Restrained, the player expected to meet his demise, thinking that he was still lucky to be able to obtain an S-rank talent. But the sore loser wouldn't let it end here and there, and so he decided to spit into the monster's jaws. Grossed out, the Kylan took a few steps away and spat out this odd projectile. Ham was happy to have escaped, but his vulgar action increased the monster's anger towards him exponentially, making it use its talent Prohibition Ocean Domain. The young man couldn't believe his eyes, but just as he expected it to be the end, the evil aura inside him began to glow. By reaching level 50, Piercing River awakened the hidden S-rank skill of the dark swordsman known as Dark Reincarnation, and so the evil power inside the young man became out of control. Since being neither alive nor dead, Dark Reincarnation would increase the stats of the battle-thirsty Dark Swordsman by 50% in exchange for dropping 10 levels and a week-long cooldown. For normal players, this skill would require tons of calculation due to the drawbacks, but it was in fact perfect for the Fallen. Since Piercing River could level up but not respawn, losing the game would be like restarting from level 1. And with that, all of his stats were boosted by 50%. As immense evil aura began to shine from him, leaving the Kylan in shock. Shocked, the creature asked the young man about this evil power. The protagonist was surprised to hear the god-tier boss speak, and decided to taunt him by stating that he would tell him if he admitted defeat, angering the young beast. With that, the young man decided to cut straight to the violence, and used evil trampling, immobilizing the beast for 0.5 seconds. But Piercing River wasn't done just yet. and bombarded the legendary creature with powerful punches. The Kylin was surprised to see this young man use a skill supposedly forgotten. The player mockingly responded by stating that he could also breathe underwater. So the determinative Kylin used its skill Prohibition Ocean Domain, ensuring that sea monsters would assault his opponent for 3 minutes, which left the baffled player confused. And so he decided to end the fight as soon as possible, when suddenly a water worm attacked him. The bite of the poisonous sea snake inflicted 500 points of damage for 10 seconds. But this effect didn't impress the young player. However, he then suddenly lost 96 HP points as he was grabbed by the leg. So Piercing River shook it off and charged at his toughest trial yet, before riding on the water Kylin's back while punching him and even begging him to die, which the god-tier boss took as an insult. Yet the protagonist kept on mocking and provoking his foe. Seeing the adventurer being this vulgar angered the fantastic beast even more. The player wanted to distract the monster, but instead, it resulted in another powerful attack. When suddenly a voice began to advise the water Kylin known as Yahello, Piercing River speculated that it was an inhabitant observing his trial. Thinking that this person had malicious intent, he advised his adversary not to lend him an ear. This form of concern annoyed the Kylin even more. So fearing the worst, the young man jumped off his back and used evil trampling on the beast once again, canceling its skill, sweeping Cold Wave and freezing him for half a second, before attacking without any rest, dropping the monster's health to 20%. Now only a 10th remained, as the protagonist kept punching without any interruption, when the Ocean Domain summoned a giant shark in order to finish him off. But just then did Piercing River land the final punch, and finally defeated the god-tier boss, ensuring himself a talent between A rank and S rank. The excited victor received 10 stat points as it was now time for him to pick up his talent. The voice then began to compliment the protagonist, stating that it was a shame to see him with the dark faction. But Han affirmed that being a part of the light faction didn't mean that one is a good-hearted being. The inhabitant was left speechless before stating that he and the strong player would eventually meet, making the protagonist wish to meet him as an ally. The system then informed him that it was now time for him to choose his talent that cannot be outgrown and would stay with him for life. Han was annoyed to discover that there was no trial for SS rank talent, when something seemed to have caught his attention. The protagonist found himself in a space full of talent spheres where he had 60 minutes to choose one among them. The curious player grabbed the first talent that increased one's final defense by 20% called Solid Rock, leaving Han impressed by the A-rank talents. Final defense was different from regular defense since players with this talent are extremely durable. Yet Piercing River would always favor attack over defense, since even if one had impenetrable armor, he would be unable to protect his teammates, ensuring his defeat when facing a group alone. This is why the protagonist, who relishes offense, dropped the sphere, since Dark Reincarnation, once at 6 stars, would pair perfectly with an offensive talent. The search would be hard since the spheres were many and the time little, and so our hero began to sprint between the different talents. But to his misfortune, all of them were mere A rank. The annoyed player demanded an S rank talent. 20 minutes had passed and all he could find were blue spheres, when he suddenly stumbled upon a golden ball. Han finally found an S rank talent called Immortality that would restore 0.3% of his health each second during battle and 2% at rest. The young man was left amazed by this talent that would restore his health within a minute. Yet the Dark Swordsman was after offensive power, but he decided to keep the talent with him just in case he ran out of time. 40 minutes had passed and still nothing. 10 minutes were left, when he finally found another golden sphere, and so the young man quickly grabbed it, hoping for the best. The player found the S-rank passive known as Madness that would increase his final attack by 40% in exchange for reducing his defense to 80%. He was overjoyed despite the drawbacks, as the immense increase in attack suited him perfectly, and so he chose Madness as his definitive talent. Just like that, the young man obtained his second S-rank skill. The trial was finally over, but Piercing River wished to obtain an SS rank talent. The system then congratulated the young man for being the second player to complete his trial, giving him 1 talent point, 1,000 points of reputation, and 5 free stat points. But what followed left the young man speechless. His S-rank talent Madness was upgraded to the SS rank talent Dominant, in addition to 1 luck point for getting an SS rank skill, leaving the young man overjoyed by the generosity of the system toward his second place. With that, he was teleported back to his world. And so Piercing River returned to the underground cave. Han decided to look at this new talent. His new SS rank passive would increase his final attack by 50%. This talent was perfect, as not only did it not nerf his defense, but it also gave him more attack than the S rank skill Madness, which wasn't inferior to the skill Sword God of the Light faction. But Dominant turned out to be superior, Piercing River couldn't be more thankful to the system. He then remembered that he didn't pick up the loot left by the silver tier boss, a loot that looked promising. The level 19 assassin named God's Forbidden Zone, the first talent receiver, began to flex his A-rank talent called Swift, which granted him 30% more speed. The pretentious player stated that he would be happy to help anyone who needed it in the stream, as comments began to rain, cringing out the player that received an SS-rank talent to the point where he found the trickery of his class pitiful in front of raw strength. And now that Han had eaten, he was ready to get back into the game. And so Piercing River was once again in the Rat King's cave. His last mission was pretty lucrative, as killing the Rat King gave him 3 silver tier equipment and 50 silver coins. Our hero received the brilliant gold helmet along with the brilliant gold boots and the sword of the Rat King. But he couldn't help but notice that he needed to be at least level 25 to wield the sword and level 30 to just wear the boots, and still needed some more EXP before reaching level 20. Piercing River then decided to try out his new talent by attacking a bunch of nearby rats. With one swing of his sword, the young man was able to deal an astonishing amount of 11,487 damage, making all the pests instantly disappear, leaving the satisfied dark swordsman amazed. Piercing River then received a notification from the system proposing to make his achievement public in order to get 5,000 reputation points, which he immediately agreed to. Once the news was made public, all players were thrown into shock as it was hard for them to believe that a player managed to get an SS rank skill. But just then, a window popped up. It was Dragon soaring 10,000 miles congratulating him on his new talent. The protagonist thanked the man, who stated that if he didn't know him well, he would have accused him of being a spy for the game's developers. The man then proposed to the hero, who was being humble, to pay him a fair price in exchange for intel on how to get a high-ranked talent, a very tempting offer. And so he revealed to him how equipment is useless in trials and how he should focus on skills and class growth stars. Yet even with this information, getting the highest rank of skills is impossible, since it is challenging for beginners to get strong skills and to up their chances with passive stat bonuses. The player would also need the high growth stars of a rare hidden class. Lastly, even if the player is rich and can secure the first 2 conditions, it would cost lots of time and money, in addition to the fact that the highest rank is S rank since he isn't one of the first to enter the trial. And just like that, Piercing River earned himself a quick 100,000 yuan, leaving the young man baffled by his business partner's wealth. The man thanked the protagonist for his help, stating that he never paid attention to stars as he assumed that his friend must be pretty advanced. But the Dark Swordsman pretended to only have 4 stars since his 6 stars seemed exaggerated. And so Dragon Soaring 10,000 Miles posted an announcement that he is willing to pay a high price for a hidden class and even higher for a sole hidden class, with the price being negotiable. Since the announcement would cost 100 coins to air in the whole country, Han guessed that the man spent a fortune, seeing how 1 gold coin costs 7,000 yuan. The protagonist began to think that this concerned the white lie he told earlier. As he hummed up the call, the rich man stated that the growth star level of hidden classes is way too powerful. He also suspected that Piercing River was only trying to preserve his reputation by claiming to have 4 stars. When one of his allies asked him about the sole hidden class growth star level, this one was left impressed to learn that it was an impressive 4 stars. Raising the star level was now crucial, since it would impact the strength difference later on, which is why the wealthy man would only focus on getting a hidden class and even a sole hidden one if possible, instead of leveling up. And so the man's ally decided to ask the rest of the guild to collect information. An hour had passed since then, and our hero, now level 20, had completed his mission and decided to go back to his master in order to receive his reward. Shortly after, in the City of Darkness, Piercing River returned to his master's side. Daniel was startled and amazed by his student's unexpected attack power growth. His student, the Fallen, was now a level 20 bronze tier boss, but decided to keep his SS rank talent a secret from his master since he was unsure of his reaction. The speechless mentor couldn't comprehend how the protagonist's attack points, which were a mere 200, suddenly reached a whopping 750. But despite all, the teacher was still happy for his student and decided not to ask him about his talent and asked him instead about the equipment that he desired. This shocked the young man, as he got to choose his reward for the first time. The teacher affirmed once again that he would use all his power to help his student grow. The thankful Piercing River asked the necromancer for a way to lower the required level on his newest sword, as he gave the sword to the dark magician, who judged the weapon befitting of his pupil. By completing his mission, the young man received 150,000 EXP points along with the C-rank item Gift Orb. With that, the young man reached level 21. As for the Gift Orb, it was proof of the teacher's care that lowered the required level of any silver tier equipment piece by 10. The protagonist couldn't be more grateful. The teacher advised him to use it immediately, and so the orb was used on the sword of the Demon Rat King, lowering its required level to 15. When suddenly an idea came to the Dark Swordsman's mind. and he asked his teacher if it would be adequate for him to use the power of the blessing orb in order to sophisticate his newest blade. The surprised mage wanted to know where his student obtained it, as it was more precious than the gift orb, so Han stated that it was just good luck. The dark magician stated that it was a brilliant idea, as it wouldn't be a waste to use this low-rank blessing orb to upgrade the silver tier sword, and so the orb was used on the sword of the Rat King. With that, the silver tier blade entered the gold rank. The difference in rank could be seen, as gold was superior to silver. The weapon's stats weren't out of the ordinary, but in the hands of the hero and his advantages, the damage would be considerably increased. Just then, the system informed him that he had become a silver tier boss, and his title had also changed. This left the player overjoyed, as his title was changed to the Dark Master, upgrading his stats. His description had also been updated, as he was now described as a despicable traitor of the light who aimed to master all of darkness with the help of his master, the Necromancer. Han was now sure to be a difficult target with his attack power. His new title also increased his final life points by 150%. Piercing River finally understood the power of the blessing of the demon god, as it only revealed its true power, rivaling resurrection after reaching a certain level. The teacher then began to flatter his student's talent and skills, but the student returned the compliment, which the proud Daniel clearly accepted. The Necromancer then stated that Piercing River's attack was high, but his defense and gear were pathetic, and that he should do better to aid the Dark City. This made the young man look forward to a new mission. The ruler of the city explained that unwanted adventurers had been spotted near his domain, and since they belonged to the rival faction, they shouldn't be left alive. The next mission was to terminate those players, a B difficulty mission that the protagonist immediately accepted. Although he didn't expect that kind of task, the young man was thrilled by the immense EXP that he would get by slaying players. The mission consisted of killing 500 adventurers in order to prove his pledge to the darkness, as mysterious rewards awaited him. But before that, the young man asked for elixirs. Daniel affirmed that he couldn't hand them over for free, or would agree to trade them with a 30% discount since he was trading with his pupil, a kindness that the young man immediately accepted. He took a look at the healing elixir, which would restore 500 life points each second for 10 seconds for 35 silver coins, and the life elixir, which had double the effects for double the price. The young man was left baffled at how high those prices were even with the discount, which meant that the life elixir originally cost 1 gold coin. This made it look more like a scam than a fair trade for the player, and with a heavy heart, he bought 5 life elixirs and 4 healing elixirs. With that, the young man went on his way. When a giant shadow in the sky caught his attention, it turned out to be a massive dragon. The Dragon Master on top seemed intrigued, piquing the curiosity of his ride. For a second, the Dragon Rider felt the presence of a dark, powerful aura, but he assumed that it was just a mere delusion, since powerful demons do not spawn in this area. The dragon proposed to investigate, but the rider declined, since their ongoing mission was far more important than wasting time hunting demons. As he watched the dragon fly away, the young man wished to ride one, but such amusement was only available in later stages of the game, when he suddenly noticed a figure hiding nearby. The player known as Infidelity Master, a trainee thief, had been discovered. The player couldn't believe his eyes, as Piercing River had become a silver tier boss. Seeing how the other player couldn't comprehend how he became a boss, Piercing River began to wonder about the player's next move, and so he called out the adventurer, stating how stupid he was for stalking him. This confused the trainee thief, as it meant that players could be something other than adventurers. This also made him speculate that Piercing River was in fact just a character in the game, but he quickly ditched this idea, seeing how he terminated over 100 players alone. And so Infidelity Master demanded an explanation from the protagonist, since the bounty on his head was enough to make one incredibly wealthy. But the protagonist immediately eliminated him with one swing of his sword. Being killed by a single attack that dealt almost 12,000 points of damage made the young man question the game itself. But he was more baffled to learn that this wasn't a special move, but a simple basic slash. And so he made Piercing River's coordinates public and warned everyone about his attack power of over 10,000, seeing how he was killed by a single blow. This threw the community into chaos, yet they weren't discouraged, as they were sure to take him out with sheer numbers. Naturally, the message being public also meant that Piercing River also received it. Seeing this, he immediately tried to run away, since the bounty on his head would make him a target for ambush. Even if the chances of facing someone with a scroll similar to the one he received at the start of the game were slim, it was still possible, and if so, it would be game over. 10 minutes later, the protagonist noticed a crowd had gathered. Many players assembled to face him, but things should turn out well for Piercing River if he doesn't face the army head-on, since it would be impossible for someone who didn't pass the talent trial to beat him. Sharp Blade Violent Storm asked Infidelity Master about their target's location. The thief speculated that the young man had fled, seeing how they were in the exact spot he terminated him earlier. And so he ordered the search to begin to capture Piercing River, supposedly the only player with a hidden profession. All were excited at the chance, and so the search began. The first defeated players gave their coordinates to the rest, making the commander-in-chief and his men charge into the murder scene. But just as they arrived, an eliminated player was signaled somewhere else. making the player in charge realize that their target decided to eliminate them one by one rather than facing them head-on. Sharp Blade Violent Storm also didn't expect the game to have such a huge map, as the current one in its nearby town could contain at least 10,000 players. And since the game hasn't been out for a week, most players are still in the newbie towns, and it would also be ridiculous to send 10,000 players to hunt down a single one. Piercing River was too powerful and too fast for the hunting party, making some speculate that he was a hacker. Sharp Blade Violent Storm was left speechless. In the end, he judged that this hunt was too dangerous despite spending a fortune on equipment capable of freezing the target for 10 minutes. Yet despite all the sacrifices made by the guild, since the Dark Swordsman was attacking them individually, there was a high chance of them still losing to him. Meanwhile, the protagonist kept on slaying players with one strike of his sword. The enormous EXP received from dead players allowed him to quickly reach level 22. But just as he had slain 500 players, the system informed him that this massacre was spotted by the Light faction, who would return in a week in order to take back the City of Darkness. This notification was received by all players. Piercing River was surprised to hear about the territorial fight. This battle would surely be the first large-scale event with the formidable task of gathering enough players to conquer the city, testing the guild's teamwork. And being the third strongest boss of the City of Darkness, deserting the fight would result in the protagonist returning to level 12 along with permanently losing 1,000 reputation points. Piercing River was baffled to see that this challenging battle was inevitable. Things weren't looking good for our hero since the Light faction had the upper hand in large-scale events. And taking into account the rank of the city, the Light faction might also send powerful, non-playable characters. Shortly after, in the city in question, Piercing River went to discuss the matter with Daniel. The Dark Magician didn't expect his student to be embroiled in the continent's business. This expression was rather surprising to hear from an NPC. Daniel affirmed that he would protect his student no matter what and teleport him away without being affected by the system's punishment, leaving the pupil concerned for his master. But the necromancer reassured him by stating that as a death magician, he didn't fear his demise but welcomed it since he had already fulfilled his mission. These words left the young man utterly confused, but the teacher reassured him that he would understand one day and not to worry about him, leaving the young man lost in his thoughts, which is why the teacher proposed to address the matter when the time comes. In the meantime, the teacher decided to let his pupil choose his reward for completing his task. Piercing River asked for a better pair of boots, and so the young man received 200,000 EXP points from his teacher and the silver tier Boots of Speed. A decent pair of boots with an 8% boost on speed and a required level of 22 that would keep him warm in winter and cool in the summer. The young man was happy to obtain another silver tier piece of equipment. Having reached the required level, he also took the chance to wear the gear dropped by the Rat King. Despite not improving attack, his wrist guards are only bronze tier. Most of his equipment is now silver, and now with his 5-star growth on defense, he would be untouchable by normal players. With that, Han asked Daniel for another mission, stating how his student was a talented dark swordsman who would learn new skills as he progressed but lacked the basics. He gave Piercing River a letter of recommendation that he would have to deliver to the undead swordsman in the swamps of ghosts to learn newer techniques. Han was thankful to the necromancer, and so Piercing River's new C-tier mission was to hand Daniel's letter to the undead swordsman, who ruled the swamps of ghosts after regaining life due to his monstrous power. The young man then asked his teacher for directions to the said swamp. This game didn't provide any assistance to its players in the usage of the map. Instead, it encouraged them to explore its world. With that, Piercing River went on his way, and after a long walk, the young man seemed relieved as he finally reached his destination. The moon shined brightly on this cursed land. Piercing River noticed a few silhouettes not far away. Those were rotting corpses of an unknown level and defense that despised the living and viewed them as enemies after being killed and reanimated by hate in this very swamp. The player speculated that the hidden monsters level should be at least 28, but since the rest of their stats except defense were close to the players, he was able to see them. The protagonist was then spotted by the monsters, which immediately charged at him, leaving the young man to face them head-on, before kicking one in the face and unleashing a tempest of slashes upon the corpses. Yet one of them managed to bite him in the arm, dealing 214 points of damage. But with the young man's defense, such an attack shouldn't be too much of a problem. Killing those rotting corpses granted the player 6,563 experience points. Those monsters weren't very lethal and granted a fair amount of EXP, which meant that he only needed to kill less than 300 to reach level 23, making them excellent for practice. And after 30 minutes, the young man was able to level up once again. With that, Piercing River resumed his search for the undead swordsman, marking a tree with a sword slash. Even with those markings, the swamps of ghosts were still immense, making it hard to find the said swordsman. When suddenly, our hero was hit with an idea, as he remembered that it was stated that the undead swordsman was able to feel and perceive. With that in mind, he took a deep breath and began to call out for him, stating that he was sent by Daniel. When suddenly, a response was heard out of nowhere. Piercing River turned around to find a tall knight in armor with long hair and a purple enchanted blade. With a menacing tone, the undead swordsman demanded to know what the necromancer wanted. The undead swordsman appeared out of nowhere. The protagonist should be cautious around such a powerful individual. He then explained that his master wrote the undead swordsman a letter. So he stood up and immediately closed the distance between him and the dark swordsman. As he read the letter, the student couldn't help but admire his speed. The undead finally understood why this young man possessed a dark aura, explaining how the world would be plunged into chaos as evil individuals would rise to power along with the light faction's heroes, leaving the young man unimpressed. The necromancer wanted his pupil to learn the undead swordsman's techniques, but since he was shackled by the rules of the swamp, Piercing River had to first complete a mission as a trial. This confused the dark swordsman. It seemed that the non-playable characters were fully aware of Eternity's rules as a game, which was unexpected since if one of them went against the program, the whole world could collapse. But Piercing River then speculated that those rules were included within the game, which made the player ask the NPC about his speculation of the rules. The undead knight explained that the rules were something absolute that not even the 10 demon gods could defile, making Piercing River speculate that all non-playable characters tried to break those rules. But the man affirmed that he would just die before defiling them, before closing the subject and stating that Piercing River would be free to look for the answers once strong enough. In the meantime, he tasked the young swordsman to slay rotten corpses in order to prove his worth to be his student. As the window popped up, Piercing River immediately accepted. The young man was tasked with defeating 1,000 monsters to prove his worth, which was unbelievable. The undead swordsman explained that the weak young man with powerful attack lacked practice, and if he failed this mission, the players wouldn't be able to become his pupil. Once done, Piercing River would have to speak the swordsman's name, making the boy wonder if this person was always like this. It was almost midnight, but Han had to strengthen his avatar before the fight for the city, which is why the young man decided to stay up all night. And so the first rotten corpses attacked the young man. But Piercing River easily killed the first, and instantly slew 6 others. The 9th rotten corpse was also no problem, and so the protagonist kept killing and killing. But when eliminating rotten corpse number 486, the monster seemed to have dropped an item. This was a level 30 bronze tier staff, which meant that it could be sold for a decent price. And after 5 hours of countless slaying, the mission was finally complete. With that, he only needed a few more EXP to reach a new level. But just then, the concealing spell of the necromancer was undone, making the young man return to his monstrous form and releasing his overwhelming evil aura. This made someone question if this was the true figure of a dark swordsman. This person was none other than the undead swordsman that appeared out of nowhere. Piercing River took the opportunity to tell him that the 1,000 monsters were slain. The undead swordsman then complimented the young man on his incredible firepower, allowing him to easily tear through armies of rotting corpses. And with the mission complete, Piercing River received 200,000 EXP along with the right to be Cheryl the undead swordsman's pupil, allowing him to reach level 26. Cheryl then stated that it would be more appropriate for the young man to address him as his teacher, which he didn't seem to have a problem with. But the undead knight advised the weak swordsman to keep his head out of the clouds as he would only be able to learn a little. The protagonist was overjoyed to acquire a new skill, and so numerous options appeared in front of him, leaving him astonished. All were high-level skills that Cheryl got as an undead swordsman, like the S-rank evil solution with a level requirement of 55 and a price of 1,000 coins that kills all enemies 10 levels below. Those high-level skills were also characterized by a high price, like the S-rank Dark Shroud and even the SS-rank skill Descent, but both were too expensive for our hero. But just then, the young man noticed something interesting. Piercing River finally found an adequate A-rank skill, Grasp of the Undead, that allows the user to freeze a single enemy within a 10-meter range for 3 seconds for only 2 coins. And a B-tier skill called Necro Slash with a required level of 25 that allows the user to inflict 250% more damage and seal a tenth of the target's speed for 2 seconds for 1 gold coin. Even if these skills were not S-rank or SS rank, they were ideal for the early days of the game. And so the young man obtained both skills. With that, Cheryl advised him to return once stronger to learn more skills. But Piercing River wasn't sure how much power was needed, and so the undead warrior replied by stating that the player may come back once he won't be able to contain his evil aura anymore. This reminded the young man of Dark Reincarnation, making him speculate that he should come back once at level 50. With that, the Dark Swordsman bade his new master, the undead swordsman, farewell. Shortly after, in the real world, it was now almost morning, and so Han decided to have some rest. The next day, the young man's phone began to ring. Han was contacted by his old friend, who noticed his sleepy voice at noon. After he explained that he stayed up late, Wan Kai decided to talk about Eternity's large event. The young man wanted to know if his skilled friend would participate since the most valuable players would receive golden tier equipment and precious items. Han was left intrigued by this intel about the rewards. Wang Kai explained that it wasn't announced by the system but by his special sources. Since he didn't agree to keep the secret, Kai assumed that he could freely share this intel. He then advised the Sleepy Hand to face low-level monsters in order to gain EXP points, when suddenly the young man realized something about the event rewards, making the excited protagonist come up with a plan intriguing his old friend. Han insisted on treating his friend to a meal after this is over, before kissing him on the phone, leaving Kai speechless. The weirded-out young man reminded the gamer that he was male. After that, Piercing River logged back into the game, before quickly running back to Daniel in order to discuss his plan. Shortly after, in the City of Darkness, Piercing River announced to the necromancer that he had a plan to repel the assault of the Light faction, which the teacher accepted to hear. He started by reminding him that the other players, just like him, hated being controlled, and even if they started as fighters of the Light, switching sides wouldn't forsake their actions as adventurers. But the teacher didn't understand. Piercing River wanted to turn the tides by recruiting other adventurers mistreated by the Light faction to the dark sides, since the Braves are attracted to flashy rewards. Many adventurers were annoyed by the Light faction's unwelcoming nature that only saw them as pawns and wished to rebel against the main storyline. But Daniel affirmed that the situation was more complex since no one could casually join the Dark faction. But Piercing River affirmed that it didn't matter if it was possible since they just needed to promise them rewards. Yet this wasn't the end of the plan, making the Dark Mage wonder. The protagonist suggested that they promise the first place lucrative rewards, so Daniel asked him to clarify. They should promise to make the most victorious player a member of the Dark faction. So the teacher had to remind his student once again that he was recruited into the Dark faction for Daniel's safety, and revealed that he wasn't a Dark Gold tier boss. This surprised the student, who deduced that his tutor had reached the spirit level. But he quickly ditched the subject, stating that his prime was mightier than Dark Gold level, and claimed once again that players couldn't switch sides as they were eternally bound to the goddess. Yet, according to the clever young man, that didn't forbid them from fixing it as a reward, leaving the teacher confused. The teacher was then left astonished after understanding that as long as his student got the first place, the promise would be devoid of meaning. The hero was happy to see the teacher understanding his plan. Daniel then began to praise the young man for his malicious and fiendish way of thinking, but Han thought that it was just normal intelligence. And so the ruler of the Dark City accepted and confessed that even if they didn't meet in the best way, he was happy to have him as a student. With that, a public announcement was made inviting the adventurers to the Dark faction by registering with the undead Knight Cantor outside of Daniel's city. The system notified our hero that the Siege Points leaderboard could now be checked, as well as the Defense Points leaderboard. And so he decided to take a look at the Defense Points leaderboard. The first place would join the Dark faction, while the second would receive a Dark Gold level equipment piece and an S-rank item, and the third would get 2 gold equipment pieces. The young man was pleased by this sight, and so he made the list public in order to observe the players' reactions. After just a few minutes, the comments began to rain on his post, indicating that most players took the bait. Piercing River then asked his master to mask his true form once again. But Daniel had already planned to do it since, judging by the young man's strength, he would end up slain if he kept this monstrous appearance. And so the stealth art was cast, granting the young man human form for a whole month. Piercing River was shocked to see the spell's duration increasing, so the teacher explained that unlike last time, he wasn't suffering from any injury weakening him, which meant that the spell would surely last longer. Daniel then asked Piercing River if he had met with the undead swordsman. The protagonist confirmed and claimed to have learned 2 skills from him before being asked to return once more powerful. Daniel was left relieved, as it meant that the powerful undead swordsman wasn't planning on returning to the Light faction. Just then, Han deduced that his second mentor used to fight for the goddess while alive. The necromancer then praised Cheryl's strength and stated that he shall become the young man's mentor once he himself had passed on. Daniel, thinking that he couldn't provide much for him, asked the player not to be shocked or to mourn his death, because when the time came, they would meet again if he survived long enough. One couldn't simply become a death mage, and so Daniel sent his weak pupil to gain more power in order to be the undoubted number 1, which meant that the young man would be tested in the large-scale event. And so the young man received the S-rank mission Medal with mysterious rewards, where failure would result in the loss of the city, a way for the system to fight the change of the storyline, which our hero immediately accepted. Shortly after, the protagonist received a B-rank mission from his teacher that consisted of destroying the nearby enemy camp and slaying the soldiers and a boss. Daniel then explained that he had intentionally given the young man easy missions, but he now had to make it more challenging, and so he ordered his student not to bring shame to their name. And so the young man went on his way. The sun shined brightly. Piercing River finally set foot in the Sunshine Forest map. Our hero then spotted the targeted camp, which was guarded by the Star Moon soldiers of an unknown level, who were strong forces of the Light faction participating in the upcoming assault. Piercing River was rather annoyed by his scouting power, seeing how advanced players had sharper abilities, unlike beginners who could only see up to 5 levels above their own. With that, the protagonist decided to target the isolated soldiers. But just when the Star Moon soldier noticed him, our hero used his skill Grasp of the Undead, immobilizing him for 1 second, before using his skill Necro Slash, dealing 24,700 265 points of damage and slowing the attack soldier down. And just when the soldier tried to signal the intrusion, Piercing River charged straight at him and killed him with one final charge. The hero then began to think about how effective his combo was. But just then, our hero was spotted by the rest of the soldiers. Fearing the presence of a powerful boss, the dark swordsman decided to run for his life. But just then, the soldiers began to discuss how the general was away with his concubine. Hearing this, Piercing River turned back to face the soldiers, realizing that alone they were no threat to him. And so the Star Moon's soldiers increased their attack by using the skill formation as they charged at the dark swordsman. Yet he was left unimpressed, as they were far weaker than him. And in a flash, killed the first soldier, earning him 11,236 experience points, before quickly slaying the second. And after 10 minutes of constant carnage, the dark swordsman who cleared the camp was left disappointed as there were only a few soldiers residing in the camp. But just then, a giant knight with two massive axes entered the scene. The boss of the soldier camp was finally back. This muscle mass was known as Kinton, the silver tier boss, Star Moon general, known as the best warrior of Star Nebula Town. The protagonist, Piercing River, was once again limited by his scouting skills as he couldn't see the knight's attack, defense, and skills. Kinton recognized the attacker as the infamous Piercing River, leaving the young man intrigued by this stranger he never met. So the knight explained that the protagonist was well known as a wanted man in the Light faction, and that he aimed to take his head to secure more power and wealth, granting him any woman. The protagonist then decided to provoke the silver tier boss by claiming that he wouldn't last long with a gorgeous female. Hearing this, the angry Star Moon general immediately charged at him with his dual axes, and so Piercing River barely avoided a fatal blow, before using his skill trampling evil to kick the boss's face. But due to the difference in levels, the protagonist couldn't freeze his target, leaving him in complete shock, as Kinton counterattacked with monstrous damage. Seeing how he lacked both health and defense, the protagonist understood that he couldn't take on the boss head-on. With that, he went behind the general's back, before slashing him from behind. Kinton was left impressed by his opponent's skills, making him want to fight Piercing River to his heart's content head-on. Meanwhile, the woman accompanying the general observed the fight from behind a tree, looking shocked to see the fierce general struggling so much. Our hero's life points had almost dropped to 50%, and so with the plan in mind, he consumed a potion, allowing him to restore some health as he began to use his skill. Kinton was now immobilized for almost a second by grasp of the undead, and so the protagonist charged head-on, before using evil trampling once again, dealing 11,000 points of damage. The Star Moon general then stated that his opponent had no chance of immobilizing him, but to his surprise, the infamous traitor used the speed boost granted by the skill to run away. Kinton was left impressed by this speed. The lady in red who hid behind the tree then came to check on him, so he expressed how annoyed he was to let the traitor escape, when suddenly Piercing River appeared right behind him. The player who returned with a full health bar wanted to keep going. This miraculous recovery was due to the medicine that recovers 0.5% health per second when retreating. And so Kinton charged at him once again. After 2 minutes of intense fighting, the young man found himself in the same position as before, and so he used Grasp of the Undead once again, followed by Evil Trampling, right before a tactical retreat in order to recover some life points. A Star Moon general who had lost most of his health was disgusted by the Dark Swordsman's vulgar and shameless way of fighting. And so the lady in red proposed to run away, which the giant knight immediately accepted. When Piercing River appeared once again, tempting the man by calling him a coward afraid of loss, which the enraged general found hypocritical and ironic for the Dark Swordsman to say. Piquing the player's curiosity, Kinton explained that he was running away for the whole fight, and so the player charged at the boss, stating that he wanted to demonstrate his skill to the man he agreed to fight to the death, a challenge that the giant warrior welcomed with open axes. And so the Moon Star General decided to use his skills and began spinning like a tornado, dealing great damage to the protagonist. Piercing River couldn't help but acknowledge the might of this silver tier boss, and so he opted to resume the attack once the skill reached its limit. Kinton was now exhausted and out of breath, creating the perfect opening for the young swordsman, who was able to deal 11,350 points of damage to the exhausted boss. This made the Moon Star General wonder about the young man's infinite stamina, but Piercing River didn't even bother answering the question. Before finally putting an end to the level 35 silver tier boss Kinton, the Moon Star General, in one final swing of his sword. With that, the young man who had reached level 28 finally completed his mission and now had the right to choose his reward from the Dark Mage. Piercing River was looking forward to seeing what equipment the silver tier boss dropped. Kinton's death resulted in him dropping 2 golden coins in addition to the looted equipment. The Moon Star General died, leaving behind his favorite armor and axe. The player decided to sell the axe, seeing how it was inferior to his sword, but opted to keep the armor. And so he called the buyer. Dragon Soaring 10,000 Miles stated that even the highest level player couldn't wield the axe with its requirement level of 35. After betraying the light, Piercing River lost the warehouse function. Therefore, the gear had to be sold immediately, seeing how his avatar's death would also result in their disappearance. Piercing River managed to sell a high-level axe for 200,000 yuan, and so the coordinates were sent for dragons soaring 10,000 miles meant to pick up the merchandise. The buyer was rather trusting, seeing how he transferred the money before receiving the equipment. But just then, the young man spotted someone. The lady in red was terrified of the man. As evil thoughts filled his mind, the young man recalled how realistic the non-playable characters of Eternity were and began to approach the woman with malicious intent. But just then, the system alerted him that any barbaric and repulsive behavior towards the characters would make him an enemy of both the light and dark factions. Just as he expected, this game had its own way of protecting its NPCs. And so he decided to use the lady as a messenger to tell the light faction that all who wouldn't face him in the future battle would, in fact, be too afraid to fight him. With that, he decided to return to the necromancer's side. Shortly after, in the City of Darkness, the teacher asked the pupil about the reward he desired. Piercing River demanded the gift orb, which the creepy master accepted, granting him the requested reward along with 200,000 points of experience. With that, the protagonist used the C-tier item to lower the required level of the cliff wall armor. Just like that, our hero obtained new armor that boosted his stats. Having acquired enough strength, the young man now had access to the faction strength leaderboard. And so the list with the names of the 10 strongest warriors of the dark faction appeared. The curious player then began to search for his name on the list. Our protagonist was the 99,999,955th strongest member of the dark faction. The young man wasn't happy to learn that he was inferior to so many members of his respective faction. Daniel realized that his apprentice now had access to the strength leaderboard, but reassured him that with his potential, he could potentially one day be one of the 10 strongest fighters. Piercing River speculated that his teacher's thought was related to his hidden profession. Daniel confirmed and explained that the previous dark swordsman once became a part of the infamous 10 demon gods. Piercing River was interested in his predecessor's death, but his master closed the subject, hiding the truth for another day. Daniel then praised his student for his plan as more than 200,000 players chose to fight for them, which the happy player expected. Players are more concerned about themselves than justice, which is why they weren't bound by the ethics of righteousness to fight for the light. Daniel then stated that the city should be safe as long as a certain group of individuals isn't involved, piquing the young man's curiosity. But the teacher stated that Piercing River was fully aware of these individuals' identities. Just then, the young man realized that the killing scheme was still the most challenging part. Daniel then stated that his pupil was still far too weak to resolve the problem, and so he tasked him with training the skeleton soldiers, the main force of the city, who were far weaker than him. And so the young man accepted the C-rank mission of training the defenders of the City of Darkness. Shortly after, in the real world, Han wanted to enjoy takeout with his friend, and so they settled for spicy soup and gutter oil. As they enjoyed their meal, Wang Kai and Han began to discuss the one and only game. Wang Kai then asked his old friend about his level, so the protagonist revealed that he is already in the 20s, which shocked him as it meant that Han was part of the few lights on the scoreboard. Wang Kai then revealed that he is still at level 19 and the 39th strongest player, named the Triumphant King, before asking the protagonist for his in-game name. Han agreed to reveal it on the condition that Wang Kai keep the secret. And just like that, the protagonist finally revealed himself as Piercing River to his old friend. At first, Wang Kai took the reveal lightly, only to truly realize the meaning afterward, leaving him astonished. Wang Kai was even surprised that he never tried to make the connection between the two of them. The young man had a hard time believing the shocking truth. He finally understood why Han wanted to keep the secret and promised to keep it as well in order to avoid trouble. The protagonist put all of his trust in Wang Kai. After that, in the City of Darkness, as soon as the hero logged back into the game, the system informed him that his plan of recruiting adventurers had upset the Light faction, which is why the assault was advanced by 4 days. In other words, the event would start the next day, leaving the young man shocked. Our hero then speculated that this unprecedented adjournment was due to the NPCs having free thinking like stated in the email, or just a way for the creators to keep the players on the bright side. But just then, he noticed the skeleton soldier training. All units stood on guard as a sign of respect for the Dark Swordsman. Piercing River then informed the skeletons that the Dark Mage appointed him as their instructor and demanded they summon all the skeleton troops nearby. And so a small bony crowd was gathered. Yet the protagonist didn't understand how he should train them. But just then, the system informed him that skeleton soldiers can learn a single skill each week by witnessing a demonstration. This made the young man think for a moment. And finally, he came up with the best course of action. With that, he decided to demonstrate one of his useful skills. Just like that, our hero jumped high in the air, before descending with a flying kick to destroy the ground. Piercing River explained that the secret of evil trampling was to step on the enemy's face with crushing force. The player then began to picture tomorrow's battle, where the skeleton soldiers would all display such an infamous move against the forces of the light. One of the skeletons, who wasn't paying attention, asked the instructor to repeat the demonstration. Piercing River gladly repeated evil trampling. And so 13 skeletons picked up the D-rank skill Step on People, while 3 other soldiers obtained the C-tier skill Crush. Since some skeletons were smarter than others, it was natural for some to obtain a stronger skill. Yet, they were all just weaker versions of the original, which they should only use as a last resort. And so 22 skeletons had obtained the skill Step on People. The number of the D-rank skill then escalated to 45. And just like that, the young man completed his mission and quickly rushed to his teacher for a reward. Piercing River then informed his master that he finished training the skeleton soldiers. The necromancer speculated that with tomorrow's battle, his student would rush to complete the task as soon as possible. And so the young man obtained the mysterious item Mu Shard of an unknown rank that can spare the user from a fatal injury once a month. Piercing River was surprised to attain such a powerful item from a low-rank mission. Daniel explained that it was possible since the item's rank was unknown. And so the protagonist gave his thanks to his master. Daniel then stated that destiny is a mysterious concept. In the past, the necromancer used the Mu Shard to run from powerful enemies, but when it was on cooldown, he encountered Piercing River, leading them to become master and student. The protagonist wanted to know the reason behind this generous gift. Daniel then explained that he would rather have him hold onto the shard instead of the enemy before reminding him that they shall meet again if Piercing River survives long enough. Intrigued, the protagonist asked the teacher about who he was. But Daniel repeated the same words, stating that he would get all the answers once stronger, and that Piercing River should prioritize his own safety in tomorrow's battle, leaving him to reflect in silence. As it was getting late, Han decided to go to bed since the siege battle would occur at 10 a.m. The next day at 9:30, the protagonist picked up his helmet and used it to dive into eternity and begin the long-awaited battle. The City of Darkness was now swarmed with players. Piercing River couldn't help but notice it. Our hero, who was the third wave of city defense boss, began to speculate that he was risking such high penalties due to using players in order to defend the city. As soon as the protagonist logged in, all the nearby players' attention was drawn to him. But the star player ignored all of them and began to make his way through the crowd. Being the boss of the third defense wave, Piercing River judged that it would be wise to check on the first wall. But just as the young man arrived to find the teacher, the grand battle had officially started, and as the boss of the third wave, Piercing River was forbidden to enter the battle during the first and second waves. With that, an immense army of adventurers charged at the City of Darkness. Leading the first attack wave of the Light faction was the level 20 bronze tier boss challenger Xiaozhou. The leading attack boss was determined to restore the City of Light by exterminating the skeleton army residing inside. With that, the Dark Ruler ordered the assault. And so the gates of the City of Darkness were opened, letting an immense army out to defend its walls. The skeleton soldiers then jumped high into the air and began to stomp on the players' faces by using the skill Step on People, immediately giving them some advantage against the Light faction. These abnormal skeletons, with their vulgar fighting style, even disturbed players on the defending side, while others decided to record it in order to rewatch it later. Seeing this, Daniel turned to his most brilliant malicious student with a proud grin on his face. Piercing River replied with an evil Machiavellian smile on his face. One of the attacking players decided to retreat, seeing how these skeletons were more brutal than the ones he hunted with his friends. This shameless way of fighting angered challenger Xiaozhou, who easily smashed the skeleton's skull. With that, the defending players joined the battle. Piercing River then accessed the system and opened the defender's scoreboard, immediately deducing that the warriors of the Light obtained points by slaying defenders since the Gale legions weren't easy to take down. To keep it safe, the protagonist decided to intervene, making him ask a nearby marksman for a spare weapon. The archer explained that the bow wouldn't strengthen the warrior, but Piercing River insisted on taking the bow and 10 arrows for 10 silver coins. And so the archer gave the protagonist his wooden bow. As soon as he grabbed the weapon, the Dark Swordsman's attack power was immediately reduced to 842. Piercing River then released the first arrow, taking down one of the attacking players and earning himself his first point. One of the attacking players was astonished to see his deputy leader, who was a level 20 high defense warrior, fall to a single arrow. The professional archer was also amazed to see a warrior class player deal more damage than him with his simple common bow. Pleased by the damage, the young man prepared another arrow, and as soon as he released it, the unlucky player who was hit in the head was immediately eliminated. Seeing how a level 21 tank was taken down by a single arrow, the archer began to speculate that joining the Dark faction would grant tremendous power along with a perfect hit rate. Hearing this made Piercing River think that his mastery of the bow was just as sharp as his wielding of the sword. And so the young man, thinking himself on the level of the great archer Lu Bu, the flying general, decided to fire 3 arrows at the same time. But unfortunately, the first killed a skeleton soldier, deducting 1 point. The second arrow eliminated an ally player, deducting yet another point. And the third arrow took out yet another skeleton soldier. The ruler of the Dark City was amazed by his top student's friendly fire, which is why he asked him to control his shots in order to spare his troops. Now ashamed of his overconfidence, Piercing River decided to aim for cluster opponents. And after 20 minutes, the level 20 bronze tier boss, down to his last life point, was still determined to take back the city for the Light faction. until his last breath. The players immediately rushed to him to pick up the remaining loot. Challenger Xazu fell to the hands of the players sleepless, earning him 25 points and a total of 129 points along with first place on the defender's scoreboard. Piercing River, who was in fourth place, realized that his competition was fierce as an immense point gap was established between first and second place. But now he should prepare, for in 5 minutes the second wave would start with the level 25 bronze tier boss Thunder Axe Agnes and his Thundering Legion at its head. A new army could be seen on the horizon. Thunder Axe Agnes then ordered his men to charge with all their might. Just like the level 20 bronze tier boss, the level 25 boss also aimed to take back the City of Light from the darkness, but the defenders were prepared. And so the forces of darkness released a rain of arrows on the battlefield. But Thunder Axe Agnes immediately unleashed a powerful attack, making Daniel release one of his strongest minions. Just like that, the Skeleton General, a level 25 bronze tier boss that leads the Skeleton Battalion, made his entrance. With that, the skeletons charged. With their kicks and the giant general, Thunder Axe Agnes was annoyed by the enemy's vulgar fighting style. But just then, he noticed that the skeleton general was in front of him, ready to swing his sword. And just like that, Thunder Axe Agnes met his fall, canceling all reward points. This made the troops of the Legion lose their morale, and boosted the defenders' courage as they began to chase down the running attackers. But just then, the system informed the players that the third wave, led by the unexpectedly high-level 35 silver-tier boss Angry Soldier Karo, would commence in 2 minutes. Piercing River began to think about the attacking boss's name. The name seemed familiar, when suddenly, a mysterious person knocked down several defenders. The level 35 silver-tier boss known as Angry Soldier Karo, who rose to power from a guard in the beginner village with the help of the chief, appeared on the battlefield asking for Piercing River. This was the same guard to whom the protagonist still owed 2 gold coins from the beginning of the game. Suddenly, one of the players found himself topless by Karo's blade. Seeing this, the skeleton general charged headfirst at the silver-tier boss, but the village guard managed to easily evade the giant blade, before eliminating the giant skeleton with the same ease. As the defending boss met his fall, Angry Soldier Karo ordered the troops to move onward. Piercing River wasn't surprised to see a bronze tier boss losing to a silver tier, and with this decided to enter the battle. But Daniel stopped his student to remind him that his own safety should be his top priority. With that being said, he sent his apprentice into battle. Since the battle was now at its third wave, the level 28 silver tier protagonist could finally step onto the battlefield. The attackers were thrilled at the chance of slaying the Traitor of the Light and collecting the bounty on his head. The system then informed him that he was forbidden from falling back into the city for the first 20 minutes. When suddenly, Piercing River was attacked from the front, but he easily evaded and even managed to counterattack in an instant. Karo then ordered his men to circle the traitor. Whether the protagonist fell at the hands of the attackers or the defenders, the reward would be collected. The thrilled Piercing River finally understood that there were traitors who infiltrated the defenders in order to take him down. But as more and more players began to surround him, the system began to increase his health until it became 3 times the original amount. And so Piercing River, with one swing of his sword, killed his first player, earning him 1 point. All were amazed by his incredible damage that could easily reach 1300, which was an abnormal sign that he had become a boss. Piercing River then killed the second player, followed by a third. In an instant, the protagonist had earned 13 points from his butchery. Karo then charged headfirst at the young man, dealing 5,000 points of damage with one swing of his massive blade. The silver tier boss then asked the traitor if he recalled him. Piercing River remembered the man as the fool of the beginner's village. In the past, the protagonist tricked the man into thinking that he was the only player around, but then numerous others arrived, with one of them even buying a beginner set for 1,000 gold coins. But Piercing River reminded him that they agreed on 2 coins back then, a price he was ready to pay now. However, since the deal would be off if Kara died, he advised him to take the money and leave. When suddenly, 2 players attacked him from the back but only managed to deal very few points of damage. The backstabber was left baffled, wondering how strong the protagonist's defense was. Annoyed by the sneak attack, Piercing River asked them not to blame him for what happened next. Angry Soldier Kara began to boil with rage, and immediately attacked the young man, who remained arrogant in the face of death. Just like that, the 2 of them finally crossed swords and began to mercilessly exchange powerful blows. All the surrounding players perceived it as a relentless exchange of attacks where they couldn't intervene, and where the hero was destined to lose, having the smallest life bar of the 2. After 2 minutes into the confrontation, Piercing River, with little health left, used Grasp of the Undead and froze the silver tier boss for 1 second, before unleashing a tempest of sword slashes on his enemy. Yet Angry Soldier Karo was unimpressed and readied himself to finish him once and for all. But just then, Piercing River slew one of the attackers, earning himself a point and some EXP, allowing him to reach level 29 and restore his health bar to the fullest. The village guard stated that the traitor was still as clever, while the traitor stated that the village guard was as stupid as ever. With that, angry soldier Kara charged at the young man. But just then, the protagonist immobilized him for 1 second and dealt 13,547 points of damage by using evil trampling, allowing him to unleash another tempest of devastating blows on the attacking boss. Piercing River then decided to gain some distance and restore his health using a health potion to play it safe. Seeing this, the level 35 silver tier boss burst out in rage and used his skill Fury, enhancing his attack and attack speed for 1 minute. But the protagonist hadn't said his last word, and order for the time being. The Dark Swordsman then charged toward the attacking players, seeking additional experience points. Daniel was now certain that by the time he came back to life, his star pupil would be a renowned figure across the continent. When suddenly, something caught his attention. The necromancer claimed that Brandy was a persistent revenant with an uneasy look on his face. After 4 minutes into Piercing River's carnage, his terrified prey decided to give up and retreat. But one person remained in the face of danger. The shining knight with blonde hair was looking forward to killing and defeating the renowned Dark Swordsman. One of the strongest players had appeared. The level 25 Blazing Flame swordsman Quifeng Wooten seemed eager to clash blades. The young man was left annoyed as his opponent was also in possession of a hidden class. Quifeng Wooten then claimed that if one defeated other hidden classes while possessing one himself, the system would generously grant him rewards. Piercing River finally understood this new foe's intentions. The Blazing Flame swordsman, who was envious of the hero's talent, used his skill Blazing Flame's Fury, greatly boosting stats for 120 seconds in exchange for losing 10 levels at the end. Piercing River realized that Quifeng Wooten was putting everything on the line in order to defeat him. With one swing of his sword, the Blazing Flame swordsman inflicted great damage to the Dark Swordsman, making him feel uneasy. The attackers aiming for the finishing hit were thrilled to have such a powerful ally with them who could finally rival an expert like Han. With that, Piercing River decided to attack and use evil trampling on the rival swordsman, dealing 8,547 points of damage and freezing him for 2 seconds. The immobilization skill's duration frightened Quifeng Wooten, and so he used his skill Flame God's Protection in order to reinforce his defense for 5 seconds. Our protagonist then used Frenzied Slash, cornering the Blazing Flame swordsman at the edge of death. Frightened, the top player tried to run away, but the protagonist's skill grasp of the undead froze him once again for 1 second. And so Quifeng Wooten began to cry for Tianyu, who was vital help. With that, a green ray was fired at the dying young man, restoring his health bar to its fullest. This green ray turned out to be a magic spell, called Holy Healing and cast by the holy priest Tianyu Kua, who was annoyed by the 7-day wait for her skill to reset. Piercing River realized that the girl was also a hidden class. Quifeng Wooten then ordered all the priests in the back to focus on him while he weakened the target, allowing everyone to try to land the finishing blow. With some doubts but blinded by greed, all attacking players agreed. And so the squadron of healers behind him, the Blazing Flame swordsman, challenged the Dark Swordsman to slay him with one swing of his sword. But according to Piercing River, the real challenge was for Quifeng Wooten to eradicate his monstrous health before the end of his buff skill. The rival swordsman was left annoyed, as the protagonist began to run around instead of facing him head-on. Daniel was impressed by his student, who decided to wait for his opponent to be weakened before engaging. And after 2 minutes, Quifeng Wooten's level fell from 25 to 15, leaving him at the mercy of the Dark Swordsman, who eliminated him and gained 10 points. Shortly after, the Holy Priest fell to the same blade, granting the killer 8 points. With that, our hero leveled up again, reaching level 30. Seeing those hidden classes made the young man realize that he wasn't the only skilled player in this game. Just then, the system informed them that the 4th and 5th waves, led by the level 50 gold tier boss Ice Mage Jennifer and level 80 dark gold tier boss Flame Mage Brandy respectively, would begin shortly. The mention of a level 80 boss startled the frightened players, who were all of much inferior levels, which is why they all assumed that the actual event was over and that the game's story was just taking its main course. Daniel, fearing for his pupil, ordered him to retreat as the upcoming battle far exceeded his capabilities. As he approached the scoreboard with himself in first place, Piercing River decided to fall back into the city, seeing how he had secured first place. When suddenly someone stood in his way. It was the player Sleepless, who claimed that it was impossible for players to defeat the Dark Swordsman by using ethical means. Piercing River realized that this person was the second place on the scoreboard and ordered him to move aside or pay the price, but he didn't seem willing to. Sleepless decided to humble the infamous player as he took out a scroll. Piercing River was baffled and frightened to see him pull out a forbidden spell scroll. And just like that, Sleepless tore down the forbidden spell scroll, releasing its monstrous power in order to slay the powerful player. With that, the power of the forbidden scroll, known as Divine Thunder of the Nine Heavens, was unleashed, dealing 2 million points of fixed damage to all units within a large area. And so a tempest of lightning was unleashed, eliminating friend and foe alike. As the lightning bolt hit him, our protagonist fully expected to have reached his end. Seeing the giant explosion occur, Sleepless was sure he had secured the only hidden class. But Daniel intervened at the last moment, taking the devastating blast while claiming that he had to stop Sleepless, who annihilated all his troops. Sleepless couldn't be more confused as Piercing River was saved from the power of the forbidden spell scroll by an NPC who tanked the attack and shouldn't even be intervening in the PvP. With that, Daniel eliminated the confused player. The pupil then reminded the master that he would have survived nonetheless due to the moon shard, but the dark mage advised him to save its great power for critical times. Just then, master and student felt an ominous presence. The bosses of the 4th and 5th wave, along with their legion, had finally arrived on the battlefield. The flame mage Brandy was here to settle his score with master and student. Seeing how he couldn't detect any of the old man's stats or description, the protagonist realized how massive the gap between their strengths was. Cantor advised the silver tier boss to fall back into the city as he and the necromancer would face the 2 light mages. Piercing River was surprised to see that the forces of darkness had a much sharper sense of loyalty than the forces of light. Seeing this, Piercing River firmly held his sword and asked the necromancer to take on the flame mage while he and Cantor took care of the ice mage. But Daniel insisted that he retreat to the city and wait for the chance to escape. Piercing River declined the request in the form of a mission, determined to settle the score with the old man here and now so he wouldn't be a nuisance in the future. The teacher was left speechless, and so he agreed to fight side by side with his student, asking him to take on Jennifer while he confronted Brandy. The ice mage was triggered by the young man's boldness and decided to face him while the old man fought the dark mage. With that, the Ice Legion attacked with the group skill Storm and Rain, tearing through the players. Seeing how the regular minions were all level 40, the defending players decided to run away, while others opted to log out of the game. This made Daniel order them to fall back into the city and take favorable positions, and so all adventurers ran back into the City of Darkness. The attacking bosses tried to reach the cowering players before they passed the city's walls, making their way inside. And so the defending party closed the gates, trapping them inside as the archers readied their arrows. But their efforts were futile as all shots were rendered misses. The players weren't surprised by the Dark Gold boss's immunity, but didn't expect to be rendered powerless against the Ice Mage as well. Daniel tried to attack Brandy from the back by surprise, but the old man wasn't impressed, as he easily blocked the dark spell. Meanwhile, Jennifer was getting ready to face Cantor and Piercing River. The player proposed that the knight charge first while he assisted him, which the knight agreed to. And so the undead knight used his skill charge, increasing his speed and rendering him able to knock up the first enemy that he hit within 10 seconds. But the gold attacking boss used Ice Wall to shield herself. With that, Cantor, followed by Piercing River, charged at the wall. The player then destroyed the obstacle with a flying kick, but the old Ice Mage was able to easily block his S-rank skill, reducing the damage to 1. Piercing River was astonished to see a level 50 golden boss easily parrying his signature skill. Jennifer then explained that the skill was powerful, but its user was weak. Seeing this, Cantor charged headfirst toward the old magician, but she easily managed to calm his blaze with her ice projectiles. The player realized that even his level 40 ally was rendered powerless against Jennifer. Seeing how mighty Ice Mage was in front of their powerless selves, the young man fully expected to meet their demise. But Cantor was determined to continue the fight. Jennifer was annoyed by the undead knight's determination and attacked him once again with her frozen spell, cutting off his arm and dealing serious damage. The Ice Mage then decided to finish off her powerless opponent, when suddenly the protagonist came flying out of nowhere. Being confident, she tried to block the skill bare-handed, but to her surprise, Piercing River's evil trampling was able to deal an astonishing 141,869 total points of damage. At that moment, boiling rage and hatred filled the dark swordsman's eyes. Piercing River now had his foot on the Ice Mage's face, as his eyes were emptied of mercy. 1 minute earlier, as he struggled to stand up, Piercing River began to think of how much the necromancer and the undead knight had kept him out of danger by risking themselves, making him think that they would both meet their doom because of his actions. But the protagonist refused to accept his fate, since his death would mean the end of his character along with the whole continent. Now desperate, the Dark Swordsman decided to use one of the 2 uses left on the A-rank purple electric gem that can temporarily unlock one's potential for 1 minute. And so the gem was used for a second time, multiplying all of the players' stats by 11 for 60 seconds. All the players were baffled by the hero's attack power and wondered what item could make him so powerful. The Ice Mage had a hard time believing this extraordinary burst of strength coming from the weak young swordsman. This time, the protagonist's signature skill dealt more than 140,000 points of damage and froze the target for 3 seconds, creating the perfect opening for our hero to unleash numerous slashes on his target, dealing an exponential amount of damage. Cantor was left amazed by the young man, when he was suddenly snapped back to reality by the hero calling out his name. And with that, the undead knight threw his spear, piercing the old mage in the heart and dealing a great amount of damage. This made Jennifer ask for the Flame Mage's help. Brandy was shocked to see the protagonist drive a gold tier boss into such a critical state, and so the old man launched a powerful fire blast, Yet the dark swordsman was able to evade right away despite allowing the flame mage to free his ally from his grasp. But Piercing River wasn't done just yet. The ice mage began to run for her life as a giant hand of darkness tried to grab her. But in the end, grasp of the undead restrained her for 3 seconds, giving her no time to evade Brandy's fire blast. The ice mage couldn't believe her eyes, as most of her health was burned away by friendly fire as she agonized in pain. Piercing River then took this opportunity to slay this powerful opponent with his own 2 hands. With that, by slaying her, he escalated 3 levels, and being the first player to slay a gold tier boss, he was granted the skill Eye of Insight, 30 free stat points, and a total of 7,500 reputation. With that, our hero had reached level 33. Piercing River then decided to make his achievement public in order to earn an additional 10,000 reputation points. This miraculous achievement piqued the curiosity and amazement of all nearby players. Our hero then decided to store the dropped loot into his inventory and check it at the end of the battle. This made the old man boil with rage, and so the level 80 dark gold tier boss used the skill Flame Shield with a power equaling a quarter of his health in order to deflect physical attacks. Piercing River then tried to deal a maximum amount of damage while he was still under the effect of the A-rank gem, but all his attacks failed to cause any harm, making the young man realize that even with his power multiplied, he was still unable to scratch the old man. Daniel then ordered his student to retreat as the flame mage was too powerful for him, but the pupil was more concerned about his master. After drinking an elixir and restoring some of his life points, the necromancer confessed that he was struggling to continue the fight. Brandy was determined more than ever to end both of them right here and now. The old man then used the skill Sea of Flames to deal a tenth of his attack power as damage to the nearby enemy units each second, along with slowing them down for 2 minutes. With that, the nearby players and skeleton soldiers began to burn to death. Piercing River, who was no longer under the effect of the purple electric gem, realized that Brandy's firepower amounted to 15,850 based on the damage he was taking. As he drank a healing elixir, our hero began to think of how the old man surpassed him in every way, even when he was under the effect of the A-rank gem that had sadly ended. But just then, the master ordered Cantor and Piercing River to evacuate the damage area while he dealt with Brandy. Yet Piercing River refused to abandon his mentor and began to look for an opening on the sides. The flame mage grew tired of all the emotional moments between Daniel and his student, and so the level 80 dark gold tier boss unleashed a powerful flame in order to finish them off. But in the last moment, Cantor pushed him away and fully took the 871,008 points of damage from the fierce attack. Just like that, the kind undead knight met his fall. Cantor wanted to save the young dark swordsman as he had a brilliant future ahead of him. And so the teacher grabbed his student and dashed out of harm's way, before finally escaping the Sea of Flames acting zone. Piercing River then decided to give the purple electric hem to his master, but Daniel was sadly unable to use its power since necromancers are a part of the dead. The relentless Brandy then fired another powerful fire blast that took the appearance of a demon as it approached our heroes. And so the necromancer decided to dispel the spell with his dark magic. The collision was so powerful that it cracked the ground open, and was even able to knock the protagonist off his feet. Brandy then stated that the dark mage would have lasted longer if he hadn't shielded his student from the forbidden scroll, but Daniel didn't want to hear any of it. Piercing River was frightened by the idea of being a dead weight, and so he began to check his inventory for a solution, when suddenly, something seemed to have caught the young man's attention. He stumbled upon the S-rank skill book Eye of Insight that he got from killing the ice mage. It would enhance his scouting skills along with granting him the power to detect the foe's weaknesses. Since the skill would uncover enemies 50 levels above him, unlike the beginner scouting skill, our hero decided to immediately learn it. And so he used his new S-rank skill, uncovering all of Brandy's powerful stats along with his introduction as a spirit-level mage who fell to dark gold tier after losing his prime and hunts down necromancers to return to his peak. But Eye of Insight also uncovered his weak point. Due to his old age, the old man greatly lacked stamina. Piercing River immediately informed his teacher and asked him to prolong the fight as long as possible. Daniel clearly understood his pupil's intentions and so ordered all the skeleton soldiers to charge at the flame mage. With that, a swarm of undead warriors began to attack the dark gold tier boss, but Brandy with his magic easily overpowered their numbers. The old man then stated that even with his lack of endurance and great age, skeleton soldiers were still no match for him, and so the dark soldiers were burned to death by the flame mage. The necromancer then stated that even with his poor stamina, it would be extremely challenging to tire him out with the skeleton soldiers, before claiming that the assaults would carry on as long as he was still breathing. Thinking that his master planned on doing a heroic sacrifice, the young man reminded him that they only stood a chance if they were both alive. The dark mage then claimed that both dark and light aimed to win this battle, making the young man speculate the presence of a sixth wave. Brandy then unleashed another powerful fire attack. As a colossal hand of flame reached his way, the necromancer confessed that he would be meeting his demise for now, but insisted on helping his pupil terminate the flame mage that loathed him so much. Just like that, the dark mage was able to parry the powerful flames. Piercing River was amazed to see his dying teacher suddenly acting like such. Suddenly, a dark spiral appeared in the clouds from which descended a pitch-black ray, striking the dark mage and offering him a mysterious blessing, increasing all of his stats by 100-fold. With that, Daniel the necromancer would finally use the fullest of his powers. Brandy couldn't believe his eyes. Daniel began to praise his young student and ask him not to be saddened by his death, as they shall meet again if the young one managed to survive. And with that, he launched a single attack, dealing an unimaginable amount of damage to the old man. Just like that, the flame mage's long life finally came to an end. But just then, all of the necromancer's stats mysteriously returned to normal as he began to crumble. Piercing River was concerned for his kind teacher, who asked him to escape while he still could, when suddenly, someone arrived on the roof. This person was wearing shining boots. This individual, who was impressed by the Death Mage's usual last strike, was none other than the hidden plot boss, Holy Knight Herbert, who had been triggered by the old man's death. Seeing this, Piercing River immediately used his new scouting skill. But to his surprise, neither Herbert's stats nor introduction were visible, indicating how powerful this new boss was. The Holy Knight was looking forward to slaying a necromancer and a dark swordsman. Daniel then stated that it was well known that the Light Church collected Death Mage's corpses, causing disasters later on. But Herbert affirmed that it was none of his business as he summoned his weapon. And just like that, a golden spear appeared. Before turning to Piercing River and praising his loyalty despite choosing the wrong side, he decided to grant him the mercy of saying his last words. Paralyzed by fear, the young man was left speechless, as he realized how powerless he was in front of the Holy Knight. Seeing how the young man kept silent, the hidden boss was about to deal a finishing blow. But just then, the golden spear was stopped by a purple blade. The undead swordsman was able to stop the Holy Knight's strike. Master and student watched as Cheryl entered the battle. Seeing how the Revenant easily blocked his attack, Herbert asked him about his identity and his past life. But Cheryl kept silent and grabbed the young man. As he made his escape, Daniel watched as his student was taken to safety. As he burned down, the kind teacher was certain that his star pupil would become well known across the continent. And as he drew his last breath, the necromancer was turned into a dark blue marble. Herbert picked up the remains, and so the fallen city of darkness's gates were opened. All present members of the Light faction bowed to the powerful Holy Knight, who demanded an increase in the bounty on Piercing River's head. With that, the City of Darkness was taken back by the Light faction, and since they were able to defend against 5 waves of assault, the points of the defending party were doubled. Meanwhile, some of the defenders recorded the unbelievable events that had just happened and decided to retreat before being killed by the conquerors. And so one of those players uploaded the video, certain of getting good views. Meanwhile, the undead swordsman kept running, before finally arriving at the Swamp of Ghosts and confessing that he was tasked by Daniel to save his student when the time came, which is why he decided to hide in the city until then. But the devastated pupil wanted to know why he didn't bother to rescue his master. Cheryl explained that Daniel triggered a heavenly phenomenon called the Necromancer's Last Strike, rendering him immobilized and seconds away from death, but that wasn't the end of it. Piercing River demanded to know more. So Cheryl revealed that since necromancers were important to the Light faction, rescuing Daniel would have led to all of their deaths since Herbert wasn't the only powerful unit in the city. Hearing this only made Piercing River more curious about his late teacher's identity. But as of today, the young man's new master would be Cheryl, but he had to pass a trial first. And so he accepted the mission treasure hunt as his test, thinking of how he could reunite with Daniel if he lived long enough. And so he decided to become stronger and seek all the answers. The B-rank mission consisted of finding the treasure hidden by the undead swordsman at the end of the map in order to become his student or pay 10 gold coins in case of failure. And so Cheryl sent Piercing River off and asked him to complete the mission quickly before disappearing. Then the system informed him that due to his achievement, he obtained 3 million EXP along with the dark gold items Breeze Ring and Black Scale Bracers and switched to Undead Swordsman. As he reached level 36, Piercing River thought of how generous the rewards were even if he was part of the losing party. But just then, the system informed him that the bounty on his head was increased, promising very rare items along with a unique hidden class and an S-rank skill book. All players were thrilled to see the bounty on their target being increased. At first, our hero assumed that life would be easier with the old man's death, but his new bounty would only bring more players after him. Piercing River was determined to take his revenge on the Holy Knight the next time they met. He then decided to check the loot obtained from the attacking party, starting with Karo's equipment and his silver tier heroic boots, which were awarded to great generals in Tanhai Town as a symbol of power. As for the silver tier sharp sword, it was a weapon greatly relished by the angry soldier Karo. The obtained items would all be great assets to our hero. Piercing River decided to sell the ring and sword since they were inferior to his own, but opted to keep the boots. He then decided to check the defense rewards. The protagonist obtained the dark gold tier Breeze Ring with an imbued C tier skill that reduces the damage of a single incoming attack by 80% every 5 minutes. Hem was overjoyed by this miraculous ring, which had a firepower equal to his gold tier sword in addition to the provided C tier skill. With that, he immediately wore the ring before checking the other gold tier reward. The black scale bracers were far superior to the ones our hero already possessed. These new pieces of equipment would be greatly useful to the dark swordsman, and due to him completing the siege battle, the young man's title HP bonus was enhanced, tripling his life points. Piercing River was thrilled to be in possession of his great attack power. He then noticed an unconfirmed message from the system, asking him if he wished to switch to an undead swordsman, which he declined as he possessed the superior class with a great growth rate. Upon refusing, the system proposed replacing the offered hidden class with a skill or equipment based on his choice. And so he chose to obtain a new skill, as equipment was expendable, but skills were eternal. In addition, the hero expected a powerful skill that equaled the refused hidden class. Just like that, the young man obtained the S-rank skill Warzone from Elite class, which enhances allies and weakens enemies within a limited area for 3 minutes every 5 minutes. The impressed young man rushed to learn this powerful skill before opening the map and starting the treasure hunt, leading him to the map known as Lava Mountain Range. Piercing River was startled to see that, according to the map, the treasure was located at the top of a volcano, when suddenly, a giant of stone emerged from the ground and immediately attacked the dark swordsman. But Piercing River managed to escape the devastating attack at the last moment before using his scouting skill on the creature. Piercing River was facing a level 38 lava rock monster with a defense superior to its attack, making it no threat to our hero. This was the perfect opportunity for him to test Warzone, which increased his attack by 20% and lowered the monsters by the same percentage for the next 3 minutes. With that, the young man attacked the lava rock monster, dealing 15,547 points of damage, making the monster feel on alert. And so the monster rolled on itself, activating its skill Petrify to increase its defense in exchange for lowering its attack for 120 seconds. Piercing River was unimpressed as the monster put itself at his mercy. And so after 60 seconds of resisting, the lava rock monster met its end, granting its killer 2,500 experience points. The gained experience from this monster was acceptable, but the protagonist decided to resume his way as he would need to slay 480 more lava rock monsters to level up. The more he climbed, the hotter it was getting. But just then, the young man noticed something. Our hero noticed a group of monsters nearby. These monsters were known as level 40 sharp-mouthed fire apes, notorious as one of the most hated monsters on the continent. Our hero was surprised to learn that they were able to provoke players like him, when suddenly, one of them noticed him and alerted the others. And so they began to make fun of his name and looks. The apes then started to say that the weak-looking player must have evaded the lava rock monsters to get this far. This mockery was able to get the best of Piercing River, who charged headfirst at the fire apes, determined to end their miserable lives. And so he used Warzone again to boost his attack and decrease his enemy's firepower for 3 minutes. The sharp-mouthed fire apes began to throw rocks, dealing damage, yet the hero remained unimpressed, stating that those projectiles could never truly harm him. And so he slashed the big-mouthed monsters, all relying on the ground at his mercy. And with a hateful and rageful look on his face, he proposed to the smallest ape a chance to redeem himself, which the terrified monster immediately accepted. And so the dark swordsman asked the monster to guide him to the other fire apes. With that, the short one was ordered to lead the way. Just like that, the young man began to follow his hostage. But just then, the system informed him that the talent ranking was now out since many players had acquired one. And so the list was released with the protagonist's skill dominating the first place. Seeing how he was the one possessing an SS rank skill made the player feel pleasantly superior to the others. The sharp-mouthed fire apes were surprised to see our hero approach them. But just as one began to mock him, an angry Piercing River terminated the ape with one swing of his sword. And after 2 minutes, the hostage seemed baffled by his allies' defeat. With that, the dark swordsman ordered the fire ape to lead him toward the rest of them. The ground began to rumble as the running sharp-mouthed fire ape wondered about his clan's terminator before jumping into the air. And just like that, the level 42 gold tier boss, sharp-mouthed fire ape king, landed right in front of the protagonist. Piercing River, despite having improved, wasn't sure if he could take on another gold boss, seeing how he only defeated Jennifer because of the A-rank gem, which would be wasted on this one. The hostage informed the king that this player was the one behind this carnage. Piercing River then decided to rid himself of the little fire ape, angering its king, who immediately raised its fists. Our hero decided to battle it first and to opt for another tactic in case the worst happened. And so the sharp-mouthed fire ape king's attack destroyed the ground. But Piercing River managed to evade before using evil trampling on the gold tier boss, immobilizing him for half a second and dealing 16,570 points of damage. Piercing River was left unimpressed by the weak gold tier boss. The Ape King then used his skill Ultimate Taunt to reduce the player's attack by 5%, but giving him a chance to talk back and gain a buff or a debuff. Piercing River then realized that he was drawn into a roast battle. And so the Fire Ape Clan killer ironically claimed that the sharp-mouthed Fire Ape King must be so powerful that all his subjects feel safe under his reign, angering the gold boss and weakening his defense by 10%. The protagonist was thrilled to see the monster's defense falling, as he charged headfirst and immediately slashed him. But the sharp-mouthed Fire King Ape remained unimpressed, calling his opponent a weakling. To his surprise, this reply made him lose 1/10 of his attack power, knowing well that the reply didn't bother him. But then our hero claimed that all female fire apes were repulsed by the gold tier boss, making his blood boil in rage, dropping his defense to 80% and increasing its attack speed by 1/10. With that, the angry ape king attacked the young man, making him use the power of the ring breeze guard to reduce the damage, seeing how he couldn't evade in time. And so the young man was knocked back. The damage still being acceptable, the dark swordsman began to pity his opponent's strength and continued to verbally abuse the gold tier boss in the worst ways possible while physically assaulting it. This continuous barrage of insults made the sharp-mouthed Fire Ape King very susceptible to damage. Piercing River was happy to see that his opponent was discouraged before he could use the real insults. And just like that, the young man was able to slay the level 42 gold tier boss, granting him 1,800,000 experience points along with 20 points and earning him the hidden title of King of Taunts. This new title would allow him to make his enemy more susceptible to damage or increase its attack depending on its nature by using verbal abuse. But our hero opted to keep his original title for now. And as our hero reached level 37, he decided to check the loot dropped by the enemy boss. Our hero obtained the gold tier item Flame Helmet and the Flame Dagger with great offense but the potential to harm the user. Even if the dagger was more powerful than his actual weapon, our hero decided to wait for a sword to switch his weapon, seeing how his class was best used with this type of blade. And so the young man continued his way to the treasure. From this altitude onward, the powerful heat of the mountain would begin to deal 10 points of damage every second. But luckily for our hero, his death factor allowed him to heal these wounds faster than they could be made. But just then, Piercing River arrived at the marked spot on the treasure map. With that, our hero pulled out the long wooden stick, also known as the weapon of a woman with a broken heart. Piercing River, who expected a valuable reward, realized that Cheryl used such a simple item just as a marker for the task. And so he decided to make his way back to the undead swordsman in order to turn in the quest. But just then, our hero began to take his real form. The sudden awakening of his dark swordsman's potential signaled a presence with the same nature as him nearby, making the young man speculate that the real treasure wasn't the long wooden stick. And so he began to walk towards the source, getting closer and closer, before finally arriving. Not noticing anything that stood out of the ordinary in sight, the player deduced that the treasure was hidden under his feet. And so he used his sword as a shovel, before hitting something while digging. Something was indeed hidden underground. Piercing River had found the hidden map known as the Tower of God Suppression, an intact structure despite being lost to time, rumored to be a battleground for fighting the forces of evil. Our hero wasn't sure if this map was safe, even if it was described as a battleground for powerful warriors. But in order to truly progress in the game, the player had to put his avatar's only life on the line, which is why he entered the tower. And so he made his way into the tower, when he suddenly stumbled into a mysterious black mass. Fearing the worst, the young man immediately activated the power of his ring. And just like that, weakened by the restriction of the flame demon god, the young man lost most of his life points. The young man was only able to survive because of the power of Breeze Guard, which is why he decided to use his death factor to regenerate before resuming his exploration. After a short while, the young man's health was restored to the fullest, and with the ring's cooldown coming to an end, he decided to be more cautious as he progressed. But even when walking slowly, the young man once again activated a trap, forcing him to use Breeze Guard to protect himself from certain death, wiping out most of his life points once again. Piercing River then realized that the source attracting him must be located down those stairs. After 5 minutes, Piercing River's health was fully regenerated along with the ring's skill being ready to use. He resumed his advance. Piercing River was pleased to see that not every tile was a sleeping trap. But just then, our hero managed to activate yet another restriction of the Flame Demon God, dealing the same devastating amount of damage. And after 30 long minutes, our hero finally made it to the stairs. But something seemed to have stopped him. To his surprise, an invisible wall stood in his way. The wall seemed unaffected by sword attacks, making the young man wonder if there was some type of secret entrance. When suddenly, the moon fragment in his possession began to shine and float, mysteriously granting its owner the right of passage through the invisible wall, making him wonder if the previous owner of the moon shard had installed this invisible obstacle. The sword marks along the way made it look like the place had seen a fierce battle. As he continued his way, the hero spotted a human silhouette not far away. This silhouette was none other than the corpse of the past demon god known as Soul Reaper Carl, who quietly and mysteriously met his demise in this hidden map. Piercing River was then filled with fear as he wouldn't dare to imagine the divine entity hidden in the tower that was able to take a demon god's life. He was also disappointed to learn that he couldn't loot the powerful corpse. The presence of the same nature seemed to be hidden deeper in the tower, and so he descended even further as the energy became stronger. But just then, he seemed to have noticed something. Piercing River arrived at a mysterious dark hall filled with the bones of deceased warriors. He could also notice the remains of what appeared to be powerful warriors of the light. Seeing this, the young man realized that this was no simple basic map as he arrived at the 4th floor, when suddenly the dark energy went crazy, making him lose 800 life points every second because of sword intent, making him think that the presence must be here. But just then, the young man noticed something not far away. Piercing River stumbled on the corpse of Lu Yi, the Dark Swordsman, one of the past demon gods whose name had a great impact on the continent yet died in this very tower. Piercing River was now face to face with his predecessor, thinking that his armor was the power that called him down here. This made him think that he would acquire the legendary armor with great ease. As he went to take the armor, the young man stated that Lu Yi could rest in peace knowing that the protagonist would carry on the title of Dark Swordsman, when suddenly, someone or something began to speak to him. Piercing River asked it to reveal itself. Suddenly, a dark, powerful aura began to emit from Lu Yi's corpse. The protagonist couldn't believe what he was witnessing as his predecessor's revenant spirit appeared right in front of him, presenting himself as the old bearer of the proud name, making Piercing River ashamed of his bold claim of carrying the title. The ghost affirmed that he wasn't offended but declared that he would only let go of his armor if the young man was able to best his sword skill while at his peak, offering the mission challenge of the Phantom to the young man. Piercing River, who realized the system wasn't as generous as it seemed, accepted the mission. With that, Piercing River had to face the level 37 gold tier boss, Dark Swordsman Lu Yi. But when the ghost charged at him, he asked him to wait, as he noticed that the Revenant, who was only level 37, could use Dark Reincarnation, which was only exclusive to level 50 Dark Swordsman. Lu Yi said that he didn't know as he didn't retain an intact memory after death, but the young man wouldn't believe it. Piercing River then used his skill Warzone to enhance his attack by 20% and diminish the Revenants by a 10th for 3 minutes as he tried to attack him. Lu Yi was impressed by the young man's skill and asked him about his tutor, but Piercing River claimed to be his own master, a lie that even a Revenant wouldn't believe. Piercing River then raised his foot and shoved it in his predecessor's face using evil trampling, restraining him for 1 second and dealing 26,546 points of damage, followed by Necro Slash and Grasp of the Undead, before using Frenzied Slash to deal a massive amount of damage to the previous Dark Swordsman, making Lu Yi praise the young man for his talent and skill as he was able to deal even more damage than him in the past despite using average equipment. He explained that this was due to his talent called Domineering before adding that he had to restore the glory of the Dark Swordsman, making him seem arrogant in the face of his predecessor, which is why Lu Yi decided to make the challenge harder. And so the Revenant's avatar began to emit an even more powerful evil aura. Piercing River could feel this change very well, and so the Phantom launched a wave of dark energy, forcing the young man to use the power of his ring as he didn't have enough time to evade, making him tank 33,430 points of damage. Piercing River couldn't help but notice the strength of the old title holder, as if it wasn't for the ring, his life points would have been cut in half. Lu Yi then explained that their path is much more challenging than this fight. He then asked him to be ready as the worst was yet to come. Lu Yi used his Dark Reincarnation to greatly boost his stats for 5 minutes in exchange for losing 10 levels afterward. Seeing this, the protagonist realized that he was no longer capable of facing him directly. Lu Yi's stats had all been greatly increased, and so the Revenant dashed forward, making his way to Hands back in order to take him from behind. With that, the Revenant was able to inflict 43,869 points of damage on the young man. As he took a healing elixir, the young man was left baffled by the power of a single strike. Lu Yi then unleashed his dark wave once again, which our hero couldn't normally evade. Yet he didn't say his last word as he dodged it by jumping in the air, before using evil trampling on his opponent, tripling his speed, immobilizing the Revenant for a second and dealing a decent amount of damage. Our hero then used Necro Slash to decrease Lu Yi's speed for 2 seconds and inflict 8,963 points of damage. But the Revenant hadn't given up yet as he tried to counterattack. Piercing River was relieved to see the ghost getting slower as he evaded his sword slash. Our hero then used Grasp of the Undead, before slashing Lu Yi's avatar once again. The previous Dark Swordsman was pleased by his successor's mastery over control skills. Being aware of all the ghost's skills made him predictable. The young man decided to play it safe and gain some distance before the debuffs wore off, when Lu Yi suddenly unleashed an enhanced skill, making him seek refuge behind a nearby pillar. Piercing River barely avoided the fierce slash that destroyed the stone pillar. Our hero, who would be able to use his signature move in 5 seconds, would have met his demise if he had taken this attack head-on. But then the Phantom jumped into the air and slashed our protagonist, almost dealing 90,000 points of damage. Lu Yi wanted to see how Piercing River would handle the upcoming attacks, The young man thought of how powerful his opponent truly was before realizing that he was able to use evil trampling once again. And so the protagonist jumped into the air. Before using evil trampling once again, enhancing his speed, freezing his enemy, and dealing significant amounts of damage. He then used Necro Slash and dodged the Revenant's blade, before using Grasp of the Undead as usual, followed by Frenzied Slash once again. As the controlling effects were almost over, the young man decided to gain some distance. But to his surprise, his enemy had developed a resistance to control skills, greatly weakening their use on him due to long exposure. Piercing River, who was taken by surprise, had no way of evading the incoming slash. Despite the fact the Moon Shard would prevent him from meeting his end, Piercing River was sure to fail the test. With that, our hero received 23,679 points of damage, making him seem confused, as he survived the powerful slash against all odds. To his greatest fortune, the effect of Dark Reincarnation had just ended, decreasing his opponent's level to 27, which is why Lu Yi couldn't finish off Piercing River with one slash, forcing him to go for his second hit. But the young man easily blocked it. The protagonist stated that Lu Yi could no longer face him head-on, advising him to go hide as his skills cooldown reset. And so Lu Yi, who was now at Piercing River's mercy, received 23,657 points of damage. The protagonist then continued with a merciless tempest of sword slashes. In the end, our hero jumped into the air ready to deal a final slash. Piercing River managed to break the Phantom's sword, before splitting him in half and finally defeating him, earning himself 1 million experience points. With that, the young man had reached level 38 as he successfully completed the trial, leaving Lu Yi impressed by his cleverness and boldness. With that, the mission was complete, and so the previous Dark Swordsman had to fulfill his part of the deal, granting the young man 500,000 points of experience along with a gold-tier upgradable dark armor that feeds on the living's blood. And so our hero obtained a piece of divine equipment. Piercing River was now in possession of a uniquely strong god-tier dark armor with an integrated skill and the ability to evolve. To put it simply, this piece of equipment was destined to surpass the gold-tier level and possess a powerful skill. It was imbued with the S-rank skill Terrifying Presence, releasing the dragon's soul, dealing damage equal to the user's attack, and reducing the nearby enemy's speed with a 5-minute cooldown. Piercing River was thrilled by this overwhelming large area skill that he just obtained. Lu Yi then asked the young man if he was pleased with his prize. The excited young man confessed that he was overjoyed by its power and that it couldn't be described by simple words, piquing its old owner's curiosity. Piercing River described it as if it was tailor-made for him. This claim annoyed the previous owner, who decided to leave as his armor had been passed on. But Piercing River wasn't done with him just yet. Lu Yi had an annoyed look on his face. The protagonist asked for permission to take his weapon. The Revan explained that this blade had lost its power as time passed by, but he revealed that he wouldn't be bothered by him taking the sword. All he needed to do was return the jade pendant to a young girl. And so the young man triggered the side quest Return the Jade Pendant. Until now, the only mandatory mission that our hero had received was to defend the City of Darkness, while all others were optional and side quests related to the main quest were not crucial. And so our hero accepted the S-rank side quest consisting of returning the pendant to its rightful owner in place of the deceased Dark Swordsman. But even the Phantom didn't know the name of the original owner, as she was a stranger he had a short romantic interaction with. Lu Yi revealed that this person used a false name, and since she used a sword, the Phantom speculated that she originated from the Sword Pavilion. The protagonist asked for the place's location, so the previous Dark Swordsman revealed that it was concealed in Kingfing Town to avoid the prince's confrontations. And so the young man realized that he could obtain crucial information about the missions just by conversing. But since he had a huge bounty on his head, the Traitor of the Light was concerned about how he would enter the town without revealing who he was. But Lu Yi had a simple solution, as he would teach him a skill able to hide his evil aura, a special skill called Stealth Art, which the young man immediately accepted. This A-rank skill would make it more challenging for players who were at most 20 levels weaker than him to detect his level or name for 24 hours every 3 days, making his task much easier. Seeing how the time of the soul was coming to an end, Lu Yi wanted to know if the young man wanted more answers. Piercing River proceeded to ask him about the moon fragment. The Phantom was startled by the mysterious rank item, but was even more baffled to learn that someone gave it to the young man, meaning that the protagonist had met one particular person. The young man feared that Lu Yi would disappear before answering his question. Lu Yi revealed that this person was the monstrous presence that slew all the great warriors whose corpses resided in this tower, including himself. As he disappeared, he claimed that this man was the owner of the moon fragment, making the young man wonder how powerful his old teacher was in his prime, which explained why he kept his past secret, as he was the previous Dark Swordsman's killer. Yet Piercing River was confused as he aimed to train him as his successor instead of loathing him. But all these questions would surely find their answers another day. For now, the young man should return the pendant to its owner. And so he snatched it from Lu Yi's corpse, making it fade into nothingness, leaving only the sword behind. The bloody sword, which lost most of its power with its lifesteal and skill blood drink, would be unusable if the side quest wasn't completed in 3 days and would only function once it was. And so our hero grabbed the spirit level blade. Its A-rank skill would allow the user to increase the weapon's power by 1% for each kill until it reached 20%, lasting until the end of the fight. The bloody sword was out of the ordinary, which pleased its new owner. In the end, our protagonist was glad to have climbed the lava mountain, when suddenly a mysterious voice began to demand that Piercing River give it the item. The voices were coming from the floor beneath, meaning that it was inhabited. Piercing River was then attacked by some strange blue flame, which is why he decided to escape, as these forces were too much to handle. And so our hero decided to run away from the lower floors that he wasn't ready for yet, as he was satisfied with his prizes. Piercing River managed to reach the exit after 30 minutes. He also decided to mark the place in order to return later on. But just then, he noticed a giant fire serpent standing right behind him. And so he used Eye of Insight to evaluate the giant reptile, who turned out to be a level 42 normal monster, lava python. But the young man found it laughable, as it was described as the dominant species of the map, despite possessing inferior attributes compared to his own. And so our hero evaded the lava python's first attack, before using evil trampling and dealing 36,785 points of damage, followed by a fierce sword slash, right before using frenzied flash. And just like that, the dark swordsman easily defeated the giant fiery reptile, greatly boosting the young man's self-confidence and arrogance. Han then noticed that it was now past 2 o'clock after midnight, and so he decided to turn in the quest before getting some sleep. And so he returned to his teacher's side. Cheryl noticed that the young man had completed the quest, granting him 800,000 experience points along with the right to call the undead swordsman his master. But Cheryl couldn't help but notice that his new student had become more powerful on his trip to the lava mountain. As Piercing River attained level 39, Cheryl was relieved, as he was planning on planting another stick for the young man to find, but this boost in power would allow him to skip this task. Piercing River found this training method of fetching the stick rather odd. He then informed the undead swordsman that he was on a side quest, piquing his curiosity. The young man then showed his master the pendant and revealed that he was tasked with returning it to its owner. Cheryl seemed shocked to see the pendant and immediately asked if it originated from the sword pavilion, which the young man confirmed before asking his master for more intel on this pendant. After some thinking, the undead swordsman revealed that he and this pendant both originated from the sword pavilion. The pupil was surprised to learn that his master was connected to the sword pavilion before being reanimated. He explained that every girl there possessed a similar jewel that she offers to the man that conquers her heart as a form of declaration. With that, Piercing River understood that Lu Yi was given this pendant as a way for the girl to express her love for him. Cheryl then added that the owner of this particular pendant must be quite important, seeing how unique it was. This made the pupil ask his teacher if this side quest would be risky. But the undead swordsman ignored the question and claimed that it was destiny. Cheryl revealed that his sword came from the same place and must be returned, which is why they would journey there together tomorrow. He then advised the young man to rest, as his last mission had clearly exhausted him. With that, Han logged out. The next day at noon, he returned to his headgear, allowing Piercing River to regain the continent. With that, he and his master were ready to depart, and so they made their way to the sword pavilion. Piercing River was curious about how Cheryl viewed him logging in and out of reality. The undead swordsman stated that it was simply a blessing from the god of space and time, allowing adventurers to return to their proper space, leaving the young man intrigued by the explanation, when suddenly they entered the domain of the City of Radiance, which was previously known as the City of Darkness, leaving him baffled. The city was heavily guarded by the Light faction soldiers. Cheryl revealed that they needed to use the teleportation array of this city to reach their destination, and so he asked his pupil if he had a way to mask his evil aura, which he confirmed. With that, he decided to test the skill art of stealth, as the system asked him to create his fake profile. But by mistake, the young man set his fake name as fake name, making him stuck with a ridiculous name and appearance for 24 hours. Cheryl, who was laughing his heart out, stated that the level 50 soldiers shouldn't be able to see through his disguise. Yet fake name didn't go unnoticed in the city, as his laughable appearance and name became everyone's mockery, making him feel like a victim of Lu Yi's humor. Cheryl then asked to be teleported to Qingfeng Town. The mage asked for 60 silver in exchange for the teleportation, and so he began to chant his spell. Just like that, our heroes finally reached Qingfeng Town, a third-tier town where the sword pavilion was hidden, making the young man think that the desired map was still unavailable. Cheryl proposed entering the pavilion at night for more comfort, which the young man agreed to. He then stated that they could roam the town in the meantime, so Piercing River stated that he wanted to buy more potions, and so the teacher took him to the potion shop. Once there, the seller welcomed them and asked what they were looking for. Since Piercing River managed to save 236 gold coins, fake name demanded the best potion available, thinking that he could satisfy his greed. So the old man pointed to a bottle of holy water that cost 50,000 gold coins, able to restore 100th of the user's health every second for 10 seconds, with a 3-minute cooldown. Humbled by the astonishing price, our hero asked for an elixir with a more reasonable price. And so our hero opted for the 50 silver coin healing potion and the cure potion that cost 1 gold coin. Cheryl explained as they exited the shop that Kingfing Town was home to some hidden masters despite being a third-tier town, which is why such expensive items could be found here. When suddenly, our heroes noticed a scream coming from a nearby alley. A lustful swordsman was trying to assault an innocent maiden. Piercing River wondered if he should intervene. Since both victim and criminal were non-playable characters, intervening wouldn't result in a severe punishment. With that, the protagonist accepted the hidden fun mission Cool as the Wind, and so he decided to intervene to earn cool points that could be exchanged for 10,000 experience points each by scaring the man or impressing the woman. Fake Name began to shame the man for acting as such in the middle of the day, but the thug was more interested in making fun of Fake Name's bald head, deducting 5 cool points. This angered the young man, allowing him to earn 1 point by intimidating the man. So the swordsman tried to scare the protagonist with his status, but Piercing River tried to use his name to scare the thug, yet the man didn't recognize him. Piercing River then stated that Fake Name was just an alias as the thug wasn't worthy of his real name, and he used his scouting skill on him. This individual turned out to be the level 50 dark gold boss known as Notorious Bai Fu, the son of the mayor who was expelled from the Sword Pavilion for assaulting the female students. Piercing River was shocked to see that his opponent in the D-rank mission turned out to be a dark gold level boss, almost as strong as the level 8 Flame Mage. Bai Fu grew wary of Fake Name's true identity, earning the player 5 more cool points as he challenged him to a fight. But Piercing River stated that the thug wasn't worthy of his blade and ordered the baffled Cheryl, his supposed servant, to get rid of the man. Despite his anger, the undead swordsman decided to play the role and agreed to chase the man away. Both the woman and Bai Fu deduced that Fake Name must be someone important undercover to have someone as menacing as Cheryl under his command. With that, Bai Fu ran with his tail between his legs, harboring hatred toward Fake Name, who earned 30 cool points. The great undead swordsman was annoyed to be dragged into this silly role by his student. Piercing River also received 20 more cool points for earning the woman's admiration. With that, he decided to go on his way before Bai Fu returned with reinforcements. But the impressed maiden demanded to know her savior's true name. Cheryl was left speechless when Piercing River, who earned 510,000 EXP, took the name of the late necromancer. With that, he decided to frequent the auction house in order to sell some spare equipment. After that, at 8 p.m., in front of the fortress, Cheryl and Piercing River stood ready to infiltrate, and so our heroes jumped their way into the Sword Pavilion. The hero was surprised to see a Chinese-style construct inside Eternity like the Sword Pavilion, where he would be instantly killed by the NPCs upon being caught. Cheryl then explained to him that he should go to the Sword Vault in the east, where he would meet assistants while he went to the sword forging pool in order to return his blade. The Dark Swordsman was intrigued about this mysterious helper, so his master revealed it to be the new sword god, whom he hadn't met before but who shouldn't oppose the young man seeing how noble his goal was. But Piercing River, who advised him to be cautious, had his doubts since this was an S-rank mission. But Cheryl reassured him that he would survive since he had a score to settle. The player needed to be very stealthy as any non-playable character within the pavilion could easily kill him. With that, he sneaked his way past the guards, and after a short moment arrived in front of the sword vault. Piercing River was unsure if he would be terminated by the sword god upon entering his domain. Since our young hero was facing an omnipotent foe, he decided to be honest with him. But to his surprise, the deity's presence had temporarily dismantled his concealing skill. The protagonist was now in a golden room, where the sword deity of an unknown name was peacefully reading a book. The deity seemed to have recognized the boy. To Piercing River's surprise, the sword deity turned out to be a sword goddess. Yet he was more concerned by the fact that she knew him while he had only heard of her and her S-rank skill once from Daniel. The sword goddess explained that if the undead swordsman had slain the Holy Knight back in the siege battle, she would have led his 7th attacking wave. This made him realize that since Cheryl is connected to the sword pavilion, he was aware of the sword goddess, whom he referred to as the strong figure hidden in the city back then. Piercing River speculated that the deity must possess some interesting books. The one she was currently reading was called The Domineering Sword God Fell for Me. The lady, who was surprisingly interested in romance novels, stated that the young man could read the book once she finished it, but he declined. Piercing River then showed her the pendant and asked her for help to find the owner. The sword goddess was shocked by the sight of this jewel, and so she got up from her seat. Before carefully holding it, she then asked the young man how he obtained it. Piercing River revealed that he got it from his predecessor. The sword goddess was shocked as she speculated that Lu Yi was still among the living. But she then realized that it would be impossible, seeing how she was conversing with the current dark swordsman. This made the young man realize that a new dark swordsman could only rise in eternity once the previous one had fallen, as he explained that he met Lu Yi as a revenant soul. Seeing how the sword goddess was aware of the pendant's owner identity, he left the rest to her as he bid her farewell. But suddenly, our hero found a blade close to his neck. The sword deity wouldn't let him leave easily, just as the young man expected, but then he pointed out that the task should be labeled S rank if he had to confront the sword deity, and so he began to beg for his life, willing to pay any price. The sword goddess was amused, and claimed that Piercing River might pay a high price then. The scared protagonist proposed to tank a hit from her blade and leave safely if he managed to survive. But the sword goddess explained that as a member of the Light faction, allowing the traitor to escape would cause tensions between her and the Super City. So Piercing River claimed that since he only came here to return the pendant to a maiden, slaying him would make her feel guilty and damage her sword heart. But she just assumed that this damage was some cardiac illness. Our hero was left baffled by her simplicity, when suddenly the goddess let out loud laughter as she was just playing with him and confirmed that it would be wrong to kill him, seeing how noble his intentions were. Yet it wasn't this simple. Since the news of her sparing his life would give the sword pavilion a bad reputation, she proposed to let him go if and only if he bested her in combat after she entered Silver Tier. With that, the old quest of returning the jewel was switched with the S-rank mission called Challenge the Sword God, where he had to defeat the goddess Dongfeng Yixin at silver level. Seeing how the conditions looked fair, the young man decided to accept the challenge. With that, Dongfeng Yixin transported them to a wasteland more suitable for their fight. And so our hero had to defeat the silver tier level 39 sword god Dongfeng Yixin, ruler of the pavilion and one of the most influential individuals of the Light faction, to whom even royalty bows. Piercing River noticed that one of her skills had the word forbidden in its name, meaning that it should be pretty powerful. Dongfeng Yixin wanted to settle the duel quickly, and so she threw her weapon at the young man using sword mastery, greatly increasing her attack speed and range with no cooldown whatsoever. Seeing how impressive the first skill was, the young man immediately used Grasp of the Undead to immobilize the weapon for a fraction of a second, before using Evil Trampling on the same sword. Dongfeng Yixin admitted that this skill was more sophisticated than those she had witnessed in the City of Darkness, and so she called her blade back. But to her surprise, her blade was pinned to the ground, and so she summoned another sword and directly charged at the young man, forcing him to use his skill War Domain in order to increase his attack power while reducing the sword deity's firepower. But just then, the protagonist was pierced by Dongfeng Yixin's blade, inflicting 16,457 points of damage. Yet the Divine Maiden seemed surprised as her opponent locked her blade within his chest, before riposting with a fierce tempest of sword slashes. But Dongfeng Yixin quickly reacted and dodged the last slash, before taking a few steps back. She realized that her opponent was putting his life on the line in order to taste victory. Piercing River then used the new skill Terrifying Presence, leaving the sword goddess in complete shock, as a giant dragon made out of evil aura emerged, dealing 36,174 points of damage and slowing her strikes and movement by 20% for 3 seconds. The Dark Swordsman decided to attack while Dongfeng Yixin's speed was diminished, forcing her to use the skill Break Strike in order to reduce the damage to a fifth of its original amount. With that, she only took 17,431 points of damage. And so she called back her original blade as she firmly grabbed it before unleashing a devastating slash of light power that forced the young man to resort to the power of the ring, reducing the damage to a mere 43,200. Dongfeng Yixin was shocked by this little amount of damage, making her speculate that her adversary wasn't a simple silver tier boss, and so she decided to conclude the duel. She confessed that the young man far surpassed her on a silver level without resorting to forbidden spells. With that, our hero completed the S-rank quest, granting him enough experience points to reach level 40 and enter gold level, upgrading his title from Dark Master to the Dark Master. This surprised the victorious player as the sword goddess had most of her life points intact without even mentioning the skills she didn't use. Dongfeng Yixin explained that she never intended to eliminate the young player as he only came to return a jewel, so the duel was just a formality aimed at pleasing the game's rules. As the young man thought of how odd it was to hear the characters openly complain about their game, the sword goddess decided to dismiss him. She then stated that the prologue of chaos would begin once he exited her domain, piquing the young man's curiosity. Dongfeng Yixin explained how it was fated for him to return the pendant and how the hatred between the two factions had become stronger, and that the siege was a sign that the light was ready. Piercing River asked for more details, but he suddenly found himself outside the sword vault, leaving him speechless to think for a moment. With that, he decided to quickly retreat. He was then asked if he had completed his side quest, which he confirmed to his teacher, who seemed more joyful than usual. With that, the teacher proposed to return home. And after 2 hours, they finally arrived at the Swamp of Ghosts, where the teacher expressed his gratitude towards his pupil, leaving him intrigued. Cheryl explained that by renouncing the sword pavilion, he was finally free to join the dark faction, leaving the young man completely shocked as he expected the undead swordsman to already be a part of it. Cheryl then explained that one could only join their faction by proving loyalty to the darkness, and that now he was free from his oath to never point a blade toward human life. With that, the first expansion of the game, called Light vs. Dark, officially began. This news was received by all players, who realized that this would be a server-wide event, which meant that returning the pendant led to the undead swordsman joining the dark faction, while the prologue of chaos mentioned by Dongfeng Yixin was started by him. And so the system alerted him that his level 190 celestial boss master would lead an undead army to assault the primary city of Meru district, called Hexen City, in 3 days. He was also informed that Catherine the Cold Blood Moon, the level 185 celestial boss, would lead a vampire army to conquer Vermilion City, the capital of the Eastern District, within 3 days. The same as the level 190 Solomon the Judgment Sin with his Sin army to attack Thunder City, the capital of the Sakura District, at the same time. The player, who assumed that he would be aiding his master, received many siege alerts. But just then, the system informed him that he was tasked to assault the third-tier town called Snowtown in the Romantic District in 3 days. The players were startled to learn that Piercing River had entered the gold-tier domain. The S-rank mission, Siege and Conquer, made him the boss of the 5th wave attacking Snowtown, where victory would grant him access to the demon god's treasure and failure would grant death. Cheryl was happy to see that his student remained calm as he wished him good luck in the upcoming battle. The Dark Swordsman wished it back as his teacher disappeared. Piercing River was looking forward to demonstrating his might to the layers of Snowtown as a gold-level boss. Since he finally reached the required level, our hero decided to change his gear. His title of the Dark Master also increased his final health points by 250%. Seeing this made the young man believe that he was among the 100 strongest warriors of the Dark faction, but his actual rank was still pretty low. The disappointed player realized that the Dark faction was filled with powerful individuals before deciding to go to sleep. The next day, Wang Kai called to express how impressed he was to see Han as a siege boss. He could also check on the other battles as well. Wang Kai then advised his friend to be cautious as many players were headed to Snowtown in order to take his head. But as he logged back in, our hero was noticed by a couple of adventurers. The frightened players wanted to run away, but one of them was against this idea. He stated that they prepared themselves to face the Dark Swordsman in order to claim the bounty on his head, which is why they should stay. This motivated the rest of the party to follow him and face Piercing River. With that, the players began to take their formation in order to slay the infamous player. But as their swordsman prepared himself to take the first blood, the Dark Swordsman easily eliminated him with one swing of his sword, before going for the second player, instantly followed by the third and fourth as well. Piercing River then claimed that strategies are rendered useless in front of his crushing power. He was then notified that his flame dagger had been sold for 2,147 gold coins, while the swift boots had been sold for 112 gold coins at the Kingfing Town auction, leaving Han impressed. The system then notified him that the currency exchange system was now online, converting 1 gold coin to 193 yuan. And with that, Piercing River was able to earn 530,000 yuan. After that, our hero decided to farm some experience before the debut of the siege. The protagonist had arrived at the map known as the Desolated Field, where he was spotted by the level 50 elite monster known as Dark Panther. Piercing River couldn't help but notice that this elite monster was superior to the level 45 Lava Python, yet the experience source was still no match for him. And after a day of farming, our hero managed to reach level 41. But just then, the system notified him that the mission's difficulty had been elevated to SS rank, making the shocked players speculate that the system didn't wish for the task to be easy. Dragon soaring 10,000 miles informed the Dark Swordsman that the players of Snowtown managed to reinforce their defense with a level 60 Dark Gold boss. This made the player think that as long as something unexpected didn't show up, he should be able to handle the said Dark Gold boss. Shortly after, the system stated that he should quickly rejoin his teacher in the Swamp of Ghosts as he was about to lead his undead army. After that, in the Swamp of Ghosts, Cheryl had assembled his army of undead knights. The info panel of all undead knights was filled with question marks, making them a total mystery. Piercing River was left astonished as he wasn't able to scout them with his skill Eye of Insight, which meant that they were all at least 50 levels above him. Cheryl explained that he surpassed those knights in life and that they weren't fully continuous like him, preventing them from being true Revenant knights. The undead swordsman then pointed out his student's dark army. It looked as if it was formed by mindless monsters, These creatures were level 45 elite monsters known as water imps, one of the most insignificant species that belonged to the dark faction. Seeing this, the student asked his master for some of his undead knights, but the teacher wouldn't, as the rules forbid it. Our hero then asked the undead swordsman for anything that could help him in a perilous situation. So he handed him an S-rank spell scroll, Demon God Summoning, that has a chance to summon a god-level entity to the battle, stating that he probably wouldn't need it if attacking Snowtown. Piercing River was so thrilled that he thought himself capable of taking on a primary city by himself. But Cheryl warned him that the scroll was a double-edged sword, as one time when the summoners got instantly eaten by demon god Ego, whom he had just summoned for being boring. Hearing this, the young man decided to be cautious when using this gamble of life and death. The greedy protagonist then began to ask the undead swordsman for more powerful items. But the annoyed teacher angrily affirmed that he wouldn't be giving him everything he desired since his old teacher had passed on. And so, as he controlled his temper, he proposed to march to battle, which a disappointed player agreed to. With that, the armies of darkness began to march to their sieges. The Dark Swordsman took the opportunity to ask Cheryl about his opinion of the Dark faction, which he stated he sees as a revolution trying to dethrone those in power. But following that logic, that would make it an unholy force as it is associated with many evil symbols, according to Piercing River. Cheryl then affirmed that right and wrong weren't so easily defined, as it is always the victor who writes history and so portrays himself as a good guy. This claim made the young, inexperienced man think deeply. Cheryl claimed to have met the greatest undead and the evilest light rulers, and that their faction wasn't entirely righteous, as some demon gods were humans who supposedly betray humanity. Piercing River interpreted this rich conversation as a foreshadowing for future quests. When the armies reached the long grass plains, Cheryl claimed to have reached their destination, leaving his student confused. But the undead swordsman revealed an invisible barrier that turned out to be massive. As he tore down the scroll, the level 180 undead knight stated that one could only cross this barrier that divides the continent when powerful enough. And just like that, the barrier was torn down by the celestial boss. Cheryl explained that they would be in another human kingdom's domain after crossing the barrier. The system then informed him as he arrived on the other side that death penalties were doubled since he was in alien domain. But it didn't matter to Han, since dying would make him lose everything anyways. Since they were in foreign territory, the teacher decided to guide his student to the third-tier town, making his student grateful. And after some marching, our hero arrived at his destination. Piercing River was thrilled and confident of emerging victorious, and so he advised the players of Snowtown to shiver in his presence. Cheryl, who was relieved to see his student thrilled, wished him success in order to meet him back at the entrance of the demon god treasury for rewards. The curious student asked his master about this mysterious place. Cheryl explained that it is where the loot of the demon gods was stored, composed of skills, items, and hidden class transfer certificates, and that he could only pick one item as a reward. Piercing River began to imagine the fortune that he would make from selling those certificates, not to mention the other treasures. And so, wanting to see his teacher leave, he politely dismissed him, leaving Cheryl speechless. With that, he ordered the water imps to set their camps and alert him if they found themselves under attack. In the meantime, our hero decided to increase his level in the nearby forest, and so he made his way into the snowy mountains, when suddenly he noticed something not far away. There was a level 55 elite monster known as the Snowy Monster Bear. The player couldn't help but notice how superior it was to the Dark Panthers from before, making him speculate that second-class advancement occurs at level 50. And so, beast and man charged at each other. The Snowy Bear monster aimed for the first blood, but Piercing River countered with his signature skill, followed by Frenzied Slash. And with little additional effort, our hero was able to slay the level 55 elite monster, earning him 14,000 experience points. To his surprise, even a low monster like the Snowy Bear was able to drop a B-rank skill known as Snowball, which was exclusive to mages. When suddenly he was alerted by the system that his camp was currently under attack by some local players. The players had already begun their assault. One of them was already overpowering one of the Dark soldiers, but just then the Dark General came out of nowhere and easily slew him. The astonished players began to communicate in French, but our young hero was able to understand as the system automatically translated the language. And so the local players began their assault only to deal very little damage. This left the romantic district adventurers astonished, making it hard for them to believe that their gold-level enemy was actually a fellow player. Suddenly, an evil smile began to crack on the hero's face, as he used the power of the dark armor in order to deal massive amounts of damage to the players as well as diminishing their overall speed for 3 seconds. Seeing this, some players were relieved to have hidden from the Dark Swordsman. Piercing River claimed that the number of players wasn't high enough, when suddenly a sneaky blade appeared out of nowhere aiming for his neck. But the protagonist managed to dodge the sneak attack at the last moment. His attacker, the level 34 shadow assassin known as Ghost King, expected nothing less. The players were shocked to see Ghost King appear on the battlefield. Piercing River then realized that the shadow assassin must be one of the strongest in the romantic district, when suddenly Ghost King disappeared, only to reappear dealing 4,310 points of damage to the protagonist. Piercing River looked like he was in pain. Ghost King then struck the Dark Swordsman's side. The players were thrilled to see Piercing River and his attack power being put on the defensive by the Shadow Assassin's speed, and so they decided to use their healers to support their friend. All were praising Ghost King as he attacked relentlessly. But it was all going according to the protagonist's plan. As he was certain that their fight was being broadcast live worldwide, Piercing River wanted all the watchers to feel hopeful. And just when they were full of it, replace it with despair by stabbing the Shadow Assassin in his chest. And just like that, the Dark Swordsman easily eliminated Ghost King, granting him 16,356 experience points. All looked crushed, and no one could believe it. With that, Piercing River reached level 42. Seeing this, the attackers began to run for their lives, fearing this odd player. With that, Piercing River informed the water imps that no one was likely to attack them in the near future, and that he would return to the wild in order to increase his level. And after 2 days, the battle siege had officially begun. His dark army had to divide its attack into 5 waves and begin the siege at 10 a.m. If not, all its stats would be reduced to 8%. The system was trying to organize the assault as it pleased, but all Piercing River hoped for was not to stumble upon truly powerful figures. The system then alerted him that all other sieges had officially started. It was now his turn to commence, and with that, he sent the first wave to the battlefield. And at its head was the level 20 bronze boss called Bug. With that, Bug and his men charged headfirst at Snowtown. But the defending players were unimpressed by the low-level monsters. Just like that, the bronze-level boss had been slain, making the general realize that the average player level in Snowtown was above 20. And so he ordered to commence the second wave, led by the level 25 bronze boss named Seth. But the players didn't show any fear and insisted on standing their ground. With that, the third wave was launched, which began to become challenging for the defending players. But just as the Dark Swordsman was about to launch the fourth wave, the system warned him to wait 5 minutes to do so or risk weakening his army. Dragon Soaring 10,000 Miles revealed that Piercing River's siege in the Foreign District was broadcast everywhere, and so Han promised to bring pride to the Eastern District. And so after 5 minutes, the level 40 silver tier boss known as Blood Axe led the fourth wave. The defending players were completely overpowered by the high-level monsters, and so they decided to retreat as they were completely outclassed. Yet one young archer was determined to stand her ground. Just like that, the monster's head was pierced by an arrow. Piercing River, who couldn't tell if the archer was a player or a boss, was still amazed by its damage. City guards then began to emerge out of the town, and in just 20 minutes, the fourth wave had been completely eliminated. With that came the time to launch the last wave, led by Piercing River, who had been looking forward to this fight. With that, the Dark Swordsman led the attack, determined to take the opposing commander hostage. The players were terrified to see the renowned player charge at them. The archer was disappointed and annoyed to see the adventurers being demoralized by Piercing River, and so she ordered her soldiers to attack the Dark Swordsman relentlessly without letting him counterattack. This made the defending players more confident as they had multiple gold rank bosses on their side, making them rejoin the battle. Harold, a level 35 swift swordsman, tried to attack Piercing River, but was quickly met with a flying kick to the face. And just like that, Harold fell to evil trampling, granting the protagonist 16,531 experience points. Piercing River then activated Warzone to boost his and his minions' attack while weakening the enemy for 180 seconds. The water imps were now enhanced by the power of their master, turning the tides of the battle as Piercing River and his soldiers tore through the enemy defenses. With that, many players perished at the bloodthirsty sword. The adventurers were left baffled by the Dark Swordsman's firepower, which began to increase, making him look like a devil in their eyes. And so, having obtained enough stacks, the power of the Divine Sword increased its wielder's firepower by 20%, making him the target of strong players, according to his introduction. But just then, a mysterious figure came charging at the powerful young man. The level 50 gold boss and brilliant son of the mayor, known as Frostblade Lanta, riding on his unicorn, was determined to kill the Dark Swordsman. Piercing River had to resort to the power of the ring, seeing how he wasn't able to dodge the incoming attack. And just like that, our hero lost 50,700 life points from the gold boss's Frost Spear, also diminishing his overall speed for 5 seconds. Frostblade Lanta, with his great attack and speed, found himself to be a challenge to Piercing River. But the gold tier boss, who desired to crush the Eastern District spirit, boosted the defenders' morale by his presence alone. Piercing River was green with envy to see Frostblade Lanta riding a unicorn while he still crawled on the ground. This made the young cavalier pick on him for not having a mount and traveling all the way to their district on foot. But Piercing River wouldn't get triggered by such taunts, and so he used Terrifying Presence to deal melee damage equal to his attack points to all nearby enemies and reduce their overall speed for 3 seconds, putting Frostblade Lanta in a tough spot. But he claimed that this skill was only meant to oppress the weaklings. So Piercing River used Grasp of the Undead to restrain the unicorn rider for 2 seconds, determined to knock him off his mount. But just then, Frostblade Landa used his skill Ice Armor. The mount's toughness canceled Evil Trampling's controlling effect but didn't prevent its cavalier from taking 25,694 points of damage, which annoyed the Dark Swordsman, and so he decided to cut straight to the chase and ordered his Dark Army to surround the gold tier boss, rendering Frostblade Landa's Frost Charge useless. The Dark Swordsman wanted to give his adversary a painless death, but after some thinking, he ordered the Water Imps to take the mayor's son on and disfigure him. Frostblade Lanta, who expected a noble duel, was angered by such lowly tactics, and so the forces of the Dark Army began to approach him. The gold boss tried to fight them off, but there were too many Water Imps for him to take on. Just like that, Snowtown lost its first gold tier boss. This achievement only earned him 1,000 reputation and 500,000 experience points, allowing him to reach level 44 as he realized that the prizes were reduced since it wasn't a one-man victory. The archer began to cry in rage as she witnessed her beloved brother fall in such a dishonorable way. Phoenix wanted to go fight the Dark Swordsman right away, but her masked companion reminded her that the rules only allowed it once he entered the town. And so Piercing River finally broke into the town, but to his surprise, he was informed that he would have to face the level 50 gold boss Snow Guardian Phoenix and the level 60 dark gold boss Frost Fury Tro, who led the 5th defense wave. Both attacking and defending forces were almost wiped out, but now our hero had to face elite guards and high-level players along with a gold boss and a dark gold boss. This time, Piercing River had to face 2 bosses without the help of his late teacher and Cantor. This time, he was on his own, and so he asked his 2 late friends to watch him from the other world as his greatest fight was about to begin. But just then, a flaming arrow was shot as its archer was annoyed by the arrogant traitor. Despite dodging, the arrow still managed to deal 22,341 points of damage. The level 50 gold tier boss known as Wind and Snow Guardian Phoenix was determined to slay the Dark Swordsman and avenge her late brother. And with that, the archers launched a rain of arrows, dealing damage not only to our hero but also to his army. The archers were so fierce that Piercing River realized that his water imps would be quickly crushed if nothing was done, and so he decided to rush up the hill in order to distract the enemy troops. With that, our hero dashed forward, deflecting the arrows with his sword. Piercing River quickly closed the distance between him and the archers, who speculated that he would use Evil Trampling. But to their surprise, our hero used Evil Presence, dealing 100% attack damage to the nearby units along with diminishing their overall speed by 20% while still being in the air. And just as the young man landed on the ground, he began to slay the enemy archers, when suddenly 3 golden arrows were fired his way. The Wind and Snow Guardian Phoenix was easily able to deal a massive amount of damage to her brother's killer. Piercing River, who used a healing potion, was sure he could take her down if he were to fight head-on, but it was too dangerous with all the players interfering and the other boss lurking in the shadows. And so the protagonist decided to use his soldiers to buy some time as he ordered them to kill all enemies. With that, he used Warzone in order to increase his attack power as well as his allies and decrease the firepower of his enemies for 3 minutes. Piercing River then managed to use one of the elite guards as a meat shield to avoid an arrow to the face, which annoyed the gold boss who was about to be slashed by a water imp. Seeing this, she immediately used her arrow in order to stab it deep in its throat. With that, the Wind and Snow Guardian ordered her forces to wipe out the enemy forces as she claimed that the Dark Swordsman couldn't flee. Piercing River managed to cut down one of his enemies, but just then, Ghost King stabbed him in the back by using Fatal Strike, dealing little damage and freezing him for a fraction of a second. Piercing River was annoyed by facing the Shadow Assassin once again. Ghost King then managed to deal 12,634 points of damage to the protagonist's back, before using Shadow Stealth to disappear out of danger. With that, he decided to run away. The sight of the arrogant Dark Swordsman cowering filled some of the watchers in the Eastern District with satisfaction and joy. They were certain they would see him fall with half of his life points gone as he faced 2 bosses. Meanwhile, in a luxurious meeting room, the old man was left disappointed, but the other suits reassured him that there were still many brilliant players in the Eastern District and how the prideful young man caused his own fall by attracting too much attention. That the old man wanted to wait for the final outcome, as he was hoping to see Han achieve the impossible. Piercing River terminated an elite guard, earning himself 20,000 experience points. Just then, the exhausted young man was notified that his army was entirely taken out. Piercing River was then shot with an arrow to the back that dealt 56,424 points of damage. The players noticed that his health bar was almost emptied out. But just as the Wind and Snow Guardian was about to deal the finishing blow, a massive crowd of players suddenly gathered, standing between her and her target. Phoenix claimed that she wanted to avenge her brother by slaying his killer herself, but the players charged at him all at once, each aiming for the kill. This led the gold boss's arrow to be intercepted by the wrong player's head. The dark swordsman was delighted by this display of greed, before using evil trampling on one of the adventurers, allowing him to triple his speed and immobilize the target for 2 seconds, along with dealing 31,265 points of damage to the target. And with Piercing River escaping to the second floor, all went after him. Suddenly, one of the villagers cried for help as he saw an intruder on the same floor. All lost sight of the protagonist as he broke out through the window. With that, they were all left to search the building as he made his escape. The players then found the broken window and realized that he was hiding in another house. Some speculated that he abandoned the mission, but it was unlikely as the system would severely punish him. The viewers were left divided as some rooted for him, while others mocked him as they wanted him to fail. The enemy forces were still unable to find him after 20 minutes, which annoyed Ghost King when someone approached him. A non-playable character called Commoner Bob informed and asked for his help with the Eastern player inside his house. Hearing this, the Shadow Assassin ordered the commoner to quickly take him there. But the player was confused as he was led to the back of an alley, when suddenly Commoner Bob stabbed him in the back, inflicting 47,416 points of damage to the player. Just like that, Ghost King used his last breath to curse the dark swordsman who tricked him. The players were unaware of the protagonist's ability to mask his identity, and with that, decided to secretly slay them one by one as his health was fully restored. With that, Commoner Bob slayed his second player, followed by his third. But just then, all players were made aware that their target took the fake name of Commoner Bob when suddenly someone managed to find him. He tried to hold on to his identity, but one of his victims managed to expose him long ago. And so the protagonist revealed himself, stating that players were only a danger when he was fighting the Wind and Snow Guardian. With that, the players Mark and Nicholas met their demise. As he died, Alan was shocked to see that the Dark Swordsman recovered the entirety of his life points. But just then, our hero was found by Phoenix, ready to fire her arrows. And so she fired 3 at him, but Piercing River easily managed to deflect them with his sword. Piercing River was now ready to face the gold boss since all the players were killed. The Wind and Snow Guardian, filled with rage, fired her arrow, but the Dark Swordsman dashed towards her regardless, and used evil trampling in order to stun her for 1 second, as well as dealing 26,589 points of damage, followed by Frenzied Slash.